Oh, what the heck is... It's all black. It's all black. We are now in the land of darkness. What in God's name just happened here? Oh, I see what happened. Okay. There we go. There we go. First, there was darkness. Then there was light. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, God, that was not... That didn't work out very well. All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode 4 of UNCHENSORED. I am back once again for another week of ranting here. And boy, it was an interesting show last week with a lot of people getting frustrated. And I'm not even just talking about the R-Kappa situation here. I'm just talking about what today's subject is. As you can see over here, death of Street Fighter V. Which sounds almost like a comic book plot or something like that. But, no, that's not the case here today. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And then I'm actually going to talk a little bit about why I hate the input buffer in Street Fighter V. And honestly, I really doubt they're going to get rid of it, but I do think it's a key factor or something that they need to think about a little bit more carefully. But let's talk about the death of Street Fighter V. Here we go. So last week, I was talking about how we needed, it was a dangerous time to be in the fighting game community because, there's just too many games just too many fighting games to play right now, right? And then, kind of started getting on the tangent of, that I have largely made the claim before in the past that if Street Fighter dies, the fighting game, the FGC dies with it. And last week when I said that, obviously, it was a very emotional situation. It was because I was really getting in on the negativity recently of the scene. And that was the thing that I was really trying to address, was how negative everything was. And I really have not been a fan of how much everything has been so negative in the community recently. This is something that I've been talking about on tweets. And yes, I got very emotional last week, but that is what UNCHENSORED is about. That is what this is for me to get emotional. Now, having said that, if Street Fighter V dies, let's just jump right into it, right? Let's not even take a break because everybody wants to hear this. If Street Fighter V dies, does the FGC die along with it? Of course, no. Of course not, right? So there was definitely some hyperbole in the statement that I gave last week. I was in an emotional state, and I basically just said, if Street Fighter V dies, so does the FGC. And, yeah, okay, that is definitely not the case. However, I've already said it. I've already made that claim. I can't walk it back anymore. I can't take it back. I can't take it back because everyone's going to be like, oh, sure, James, you're just taking it back because everybody's mad at you or whatever. No. I mean, look, literally it was hyperbole. Even, in fact, later on I had talked about, how if Street Fighter dies, the FGC becomes Smash and stuff like that, right? There was no intention of me stating that if Street Fighter V dies, the entire fighting game community disappears off the face of the earth. That is not what I meant. However, that's what I said. That's my fault. And I need to own up to it. So, rather than saying, no, that's not what I meant. Rather than saying that, I will say, no, I was wrong. If Street Fighter V dies, the fighting game community does not die. Okay? No, I was mistaken. I was wrong. And I retract the statement. Okay? I'm not going to walk it back. I'm not going to pretend like, oh, it's not what I meant or whatever like that. Okay, so let's talk about this here. Let's talk about this. So what did I mean exactly? What did I mean when I was actually talking about this? If Street Fighter V dies, then the fighting game community dies. What did I mean by that? And, some people in the chat have said it already here, right? So, if the FGC, yeah, exactly. Case Money says it it's like the FGC was dead during the Street Fighter 3 days, right? Dead. It's an exaggeration here. But, however, having said that, what I'm going to say is that what we know of the FGC today, where we are right now, the momentum that we have, and the incredible growth that we have. I don't know if people quite understand the ridiculous amounts of growth, and I am having text pasted all over my face. So let us go ahead and move to the side a little bit. Okay, so I don't know if people understand quite the amount of growth that the FGC has experienced in the last 5 years, right? The amount that the FGC has grown in the last 5 years has been astronomical, and something that I was never really expecting. I would have never guessed it to get to this point. And as a result, there's just a lot of momentum to take advantage of, and there's a lot of growth that we've had, and we are gaining a lot of, I don't want to call it legitimacy, because the FGC is legitimate regardless of what happens with eSports or whatever like that, but the fighting game community has grown a lot, and it is making a lot of headway, and from things that I've seen recently, the fighting game community is really starting to make an impact in a lot of the eSports scenes. And there's a lot to be taken from that. And unfortunately, Street Fighter V is heading a lot of that. Now, last week, when on the show, when I talked about if Street Fighter V dies, the FGC dies, a lot of people took that quote, took that clip, put it out of context. I will say that one fact, right? Because the one thing that I want to establish, and I'm pretty sure I said in the episode last week, I'm not saying that as a ha-ha, neener, fuck you guys, Street Fighter V is the best, yay! That's not where I was coming from. In fact, I said on the show that that's not a good thing. And in fact, I said that we should not be in that situation, and that we should be trying to get past that. We should be trying to get past that situation. In fact, my hope is that Street Fighter V grows so big that it actually makes itself less relevant in a weird way. Like, if you actually think about it, I'm trying to stage a coup about here. So, for example, if Street Fighter V can get big enough to really establish the FGC as a true force in esports, then what happens is that people will start looking at other games like Tekken, like Injustice 2, like Guilty Gear, like all these other games that are coming out, like Dragon Ball and stuff like that. And then they'll go, and those will all of a sudden be able to get the same kind of limelight. And people might start playing Tekken 7 or Guilty Gear and going, you know what? This game is better than Street Fighter V. And then what happens is that people will start playing those other games. So Street Fighter V is kind of a window into the FGC right now. It is the main window into the FGC. And that's actually really kind of a frustrating situation. As I've tried to clarify, so basically after the episode aired, the next day I was just on social media on Thursday, like for 12 hours trying to explain myself here. The whole point is that these games out there are not as big as Street Fighter V. And if Street Fighter V succeeds in a weird way, it actually sets itself up to become less relevant. That's the situation that we're trying to get to right now. That is the situation. I am not happy about it. I'm not bragging about it. I think it is a problem, and I think it is a bad thing that the FGC is reliant on Street Fighter V right now. Now, again, if Street Fighter V dies, the FGC does not die, okay? But I'm just saying that the FGC is kind of reliant on bringing it towards the esports side of things. Now, there's two things to talk about here. So, first of all, if Street Fighter V dies, what exactly happens, right? I've talked about this, and I said that it's going to stagnate. And a lot of people out there are like, no, James, there's plenty of great games out there. There's plenty of great games out there. The FGC will be just fine how it is. It's not going to stagnate at all. What the hell is wrong with you? Suck my nuts, asshole, James. Kind of things like that. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about it from a logical standpoint. I use this example all the time. Is that, if you go up to anybody on the street and you ask them right now, you show them a picture of Ryu and Chun-Li and you say, do you know who these characters are? It's gonna be hard to find people who will know those characters. But you will find a couple of people who are like, oh yeah, I remember that's Ryu, that's Chun-Li from Street Fighter. Oh, that's that Chinese girl. Yeah, 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 yeah. You know, like you'll have people make those kind of jokes or stuff like that about Street Fighter. But then if you go and like grab a picture of Soul Bad Guy and Milia and bring them to people and be like, do you know who these characters are? The answer will be no. You will find a very, very much smaller group of people who would actually know those characters. And yes, popularity does not equal quality by any stretch of the imagination. There's no correlation between popularity and quality whatsoever. However, in terms of growth, in terms of what you want to take advantage of, you're going to be taking advantage of mostly by using the quality in what's more popular. The rub right now is that many people do not find Street Fighter V to be of high quality. And to that, I agree. I understand that sentiment. I understand how people think that Street Fighter V is a hot piece of garbage that's just sitting on the trash pile. I don't personally agree, but I do understand why people think so. And I do understand the bitterness and the angriness of a lot of people about that subject matter. Now, having said that, I do think that taking a terrible engine out of a car and replacing it with a brand new engine is a lot easier to do than to build an entire brand new car. And I do think that Street Fighter V, while very flawed, is in a position where it can definitely be, it has a sound fundamental base. And tweaking that game will result in a much better game if done properly, right? So here's the thing, right? How many fighting games have come out in like states of being basically pieces of shit and then turned into the most amazing game? Street Fighter 3 New Generation sucks, right? It sucked. It's a terrible game, and eventually it ended up in Third Strike, one of the most beloved games ever. Alpha 1, piece of shit, garbage ass game, resulted in Alpha 2 and Alpha 3. Both games that have divisive camps, but both games that are very much loved. We're still in early Street Fighter V. We're still in Season 1 mindset here. So hopefully Season 1, Season 2, and I'm glad that Capcom has let it rock, to be honest with you, because by letting it rock, what that actually does is it lets us really, really pinpoint the problems with the game, and it's really allowed us to understand the issues with the entire, I don't want to use the word meta because it's been completely destroyed, but you know what? Everybody uses meta this way now, so fuck it. I'm just going to do it. So we really understand the meta of Street Fighter V. We really understand where Street Fighter V is going, so that hopefully in Season 3 we can fix it completely. We can fix it in a different way. And yes, that is a different environment, for good and bad, Leo. So the reason why the different environment was good is because we just played that shit and we didn't complain like we do in social media right now, because social media has really been loud. I mean, seriously, if Alpha 1 or Street Fighter 3 New Generations came out in the time of social media, God, can you imagine the shitstorm? Even when Third Strike came out, can you imagine the shitstorm that would come out of social media about those games? However, it is bad, because obviously during those times we could not expect patches and stuff like that, and so now we want patches. We think things can be fixed better, games can be updated. And again, I'm actually happy that Street Fighter V was not updated all that much between 1 and 2. Right? And so Alpha 3 had plenty of content on the console, sure, because it was growing from Alpha 1. It's literally, if you think about Alpha 3, it's like Season 5 of Street Fighter Alpha. It is literally Season 5. They kept expanding on a base, which is why I keep saying it's better to replace the engine and improve the car that already exists there than it is to buy a completely brand new car, especially when the car that you consider sort of flawed is less than 1.5 years old. Right? So, Of course, the complaint is they're not listening, they're not responding. Yeah, that's terrible. We definitely need better communication from Capcom. We need better responses from them. And that is definitely an issue, and it is something that, I have been trying to communicate to Capcom, even as recently as last week. There's a lot of issues in that department, and Capcom is 100% at fault for that, and I do not blame anybody for being mad about that. Now, stepping back a little bit, I was talking about what happens if Street Fighter dies, right? So the reason why I feel like the fighting game community will stagnate here is because, a lot of people don't actually know about the other fighting games, and it sucks that that's how it works in the world, but that's why advertising is so successful. A lot of people always wonder themselves, why the hell, advertising doesn't work on me at all, right? Like, if I see a commercial for Liquid Plumber on TV, I don't immediately get out of my seat and go, fuck, I'm going to go buy some Liquid Plumber. But the thing about it is, when the day, 5 years down the line, and your bathtub clogs up, and you're like, fuck, I need to fix this. And you go to the supermarket, and you stand in the aisle, and you look at all those bottles, and you see the word Liquid Plumber, and it's the only one that you've ever heard of. There's a larger chance that you are going to buy that. There's a much larger chance you're going to buy that because you've heard of it, right? And that's the way advertising works. It's insidious, right? Subconsciousness is a powerful tool, right? So here's the thing. With a bunch of people, and they know Street Fighter, they recognize Chun-Li, they recognize Ryu, they recognize Blanca, because people do not realize the pop culture phenomenon that Street Fighter 2 was when it first released. It was probably close to being Pac-Man levels of cultural phenomenon. You could not get away from this. You could not get away from that at all. And so as a result, Street Fighter is in a position where it has the best chance of taking advantage of that. So even to the point where execs who are responsible for something like E-League or something like that will be like, yeah, let's do it with Street Fighter because Street Fighter has the biggest name and has the biggest say right now. And so it definitely is in a position where it can get us to places that other franchises can't. Now, again, the caveat to that is that, one, we're trying to fix that. We want to get to a point where Street Fighter V isn't the only one. I want Jin Kazama and Xiao Yu and Soul Bad Guy and Milia and, all the other fighting game characters to be every bit as popular. The only game that had the potential to combat Street Fighter was Mortal Kombat, but it's too violent for public consumption. And of course, Smash, which is why I said that if Street Fighter V dies, fighting games become largely about, this fighting game community largely becomes about Smash. I'll get into that in a little bit. Now, there is a brand new franchise that's coming out that has the huge potential to blow Street Fighter out of the water and change everything. And that, of course, is Dragon Ball FighterZ. Right? Dragon Ball FighterZ has every bit as much recognizability, if not more so, recognizability than Street Fighter V. If it comes out and it is definitely a deep, legitimate fighting game, and it appeals to the casuals, and I hit one button and I throw fireballs across the screen, and I hit two buttons and this giant fireball comes up and blows up the city, and Jesus Christ, this game makes me feel badass. Holy shit, does this game make me feel badass. That game will definitely have the potential to be another game to shepherd the FGC into another location, right? If Street Fighter V does not succeed, if it dies, a lot of these companies out there will just assume that the fighting game community is not worth it because Street Fighter V is currently the face of the fighting community. Again, I don't say this in any sort of form that I'm happy about it. I say this because I'm sad about it. It shouldn't be this way. We shouldn't have to rely on Street Fighter V. But Street Fighter V is the game that's going to get us to the point where we don't have to rely on it anymore. Now, before I go on to the next kind of thing here, just trying to see what other people are talking about here. Yeah, the other one obviously is Smash Brothers, right? Everybody knows Mario and Pikachu and everything like that. And that's why, and I'm going to get into this right now, actually, about why I think Smash Brothers will end up taking over. So part of that whole entire thing, for example, let's talk about event growth. Let's talk about TOs. Let's talk about not even talking about, E-League or ESPN or whatever junk about all that. Let's just talk solely about events, right? Let's take a look at an event, for example, like Combo Breaker, right? Yeah, so obviously Combo Breaker got a huge amount of growth this year, one of the few tournaments that did. And a lot of that is going to come down to the fact that Combo Breaker has had just tremendous reputation, and everybody's talked about how great it is. And honestly, if you do go to one tournament that is not EVO during the year, it should be Combo Breaker, right? Combo Breaker is the one that you want to go to. However, the number of entrants there just like skyrocketed. And this is also the first year that it's a premier event, right? So I don't want people to look past the fact that the Capcom Pro Tour turning that event into a premier event didn't help the event a lot, right? Tournaments like CEO, SCR, NCR, like, let's be honest here. Like, I love NorCal. Dude, I love you guys in NorCal. But if NCR was not a premier event, no one would be going to that event because it's in Sacramento. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. And so few people actually go to it already as it is. It's only being attended a lot by people because it's a premier event, right? A lot of these events are being helped by the fact that Capcom is choosing them as ranking events and premier events. Capcom is helping attendance a lot. It is helping a lot of these events sell more tickets, get a little bit more of... Yeah, CEO. Yeah, you're right. You guys are right. CEO and Combo Breaker both are in that status. If you got to pick one event or the other, those are the two events that you got to go outside of that. So, yes, Boats and Joes. Boats and Joes. Absolutely. That is a topic that I am going to address very, very, very much. That is the next half of this topic here that I have to address for sure. So, but the thing about it is, Street Fighter is getting the attendance to these events, and they are growing a lot in these events, right? So they're helping a lot of these events get more attendees. If Street Fighter V dies, right, let's just say some theoretical world where Street Fighter V just disappears off the face of the planet because everyone's like, fuck you, Street Fighter V, and they all stop playing it, no one enters it anymore, and Street Fighter V goes away. A lot of these events will lose their attendance, right? Even EVO, right? You saw the repercussions at EVO when it went from 5,000 to 2,500. It wasn't just Street Fighter. All the games lost a huge amount of entrants. Even the Smash games lost a lot of entrants, right? And so that's the kind of power that Street Fighter V has in our community right now. Yes, it won't die, but it won't engender the same enthusiasm SF4 used to. Yes, for sure. So the thing about it is a lot of those events are going to shrink. Right, a lot of the events out there are going to shrink in size. They're going to shrink in attendees, so they're not going to be able to survive as much as it was before. And so what are they going to do? They need to find ways to increase their attendance, right? You have Jabali here, who's already committed to going to Daytona now. He's getting a giant freaking stadium for CEO this year. This next coming year, it's in Daytona instead of Orlando. He's going to have a giant stadium, very similar to the Mandalay Bay at EVO. And if Street Fighter V dies, he can't fill that stadium anymore, right? That's just facts, okay? That's not opinions. That's not me being biased. That's not me being a shill. That's me being a businessman. If you talk to any one of those TOs and you say, if you take away Street Fighter V from their event, how much does it hurt them? And they will all tell you that it'll hurt them a lot, right? So these events will go back down in size. They're not going to be able to be as successful as they were before. And the only way they're going to get people to fill in those seats is if they turn them into Smash-focused tournaments. If Smash Wii U and Smash Melee close out the events and they cater to those scenes more heavily, then they will be able to achieve similar attendance numbers that they have currently with Street Fighter V. This is why I don't say that Smash Bros. Is going to take over as a threat, although I kind of use it as that because I know how many people don't like Smash. I think Smash is fantastic. That's just going to be the way that it's going to go. But, you know, that's what's going to happen. They're going to have to cater to the Smash communities to get that kind of attendance. And then basically Smash Brothers becomes the face of the fighting game community. And that's how it's going to work, basically. So, the reason why other games lost a lot of attendance and a lot of entrance because of Street Fighter V is because a lot of people who play Street Fighter V play a lot of other games. Through the statistics that have been gathered by One Frame Link and a bunch of other guys, the game that has the most crossover with other games is Street Fighter V. Street Fighter V players go there specifically for Street Fighter V, but while they're there, they're like, I play Tekken, I play Injustice, I play Smash, I play all these other games. So, by the way, very great question. I'm glad you asked that. But that's the situation. A lot of the Street Fighter... If I was still competing, I am a Street Fighter V player, but because I've been playing Injustice, Guilty Gear, and Tekken a lot more... Well, Guilty Gear I would enter no matter what. But if I was going to Combo Breaker or CEO as a player, I would probably enter Injustice and Tekken just for the hell of it. Just for shits and giggles, right? If Street Fighter V wasn't there, and let's say I wasn't as big into Guilty Gear as I am, I would go, oh, you know what, my main game, Street Fighter V, is not there. I'm not going to go, so I'm not going to go play these other games. So that's the thing. That's why it hurts it a lot of the times. Yeah, Melee has the least amount of crossover. That's a huge problem. It's a huge problem, which is why I said if Smash took over the fighting game community, you know, that would hurt a lot of other people. Like, this is why I'm saying Street Fighter V is so important, because Street Fighter V has this crossover. It is a gateway drug. Street Fighter V is 100% a gateway drug into other fighting games. This is why I talk about so much how important it is for Street Fighter V to survive. Yeah, exactly. Look, Smash... The thing about it is, I have my own qualms about Smash, right? Like, you just go back to the Tuesday show that aired yesterday. I already had some shots fired at Smash Brothers, right? Okay, so, I mean, I'm not happy with a lot of things they do. But it's just a fact of reality that events are going to have to cater to them in order to get attendees, because they have the most attendance after Street Fighter V, right? In fact, many would argue that they have more attendance than Street Fighter V. Many of the pure Smash events have bigger numbers of attendees than most fighting game events, right? So Street Fighter V is kind of keeping that balance a little bit, that right now we can say fighting game events do have as many entrants as Smash events because of Street Fighter V. Again, if you guys are clipping this, if you guys are just tuning in, if you're just quoting this is not a good thing. This is a bad thing. I'm going to keep repeating this so that this context is always in focus here. This is not a good thing. We do not want Street Fighter V to only be to be the only game that is out there. And yeah, Beats by Noel Brown has said, you know, all discussion is great as a fan base, but do you honestly think that given the evidence that Capcom cares that we are displeased? That's a whole nother topic. I'll get into that a little bit. I'll get into a lot of it, because yes, there's definitely problems with what Capcom is doing, and they do need to fix it. I'm not saying Capcom is absolved of any blame of all this situation. They need to fix their shit, like now. This is a huge problem. Like I said, I have even been trying to talk to them, as you know, as recently as last week, about what we can do to try to fix their public perception, because it is in the shitter right now. It is in the dumpster, and it needs to be fixed, right? Yeah, okay, so the shots against the box were definitely overblown, but that's me just being frustrated once again. Okay, so let's move on. Again, let's talk about this again. From a logical standpoint, the fighting game community will stagnate very heavily if Street Fighter V is not the headliner right now. And it's not something that we're actually happy about. We're definitely not happy about it all. And yeah, exactly. Fix the game, not the PR, whatever like that. But again, okay, fine. I'll talk about it right now. My feelings are that Street Fighter V did not sell well. And I have a funny feeling that the Capcom higher-ups, who probably don't give a crap about the FGC, because they've got Monster Hunter and Resident Evil raking in the money for them, are probably like, please make up the money. Make more costumes. Make more costumes. Make them sexier. Sell more costumes. Please. Please. And everybody's mad because all that's coming out of the Street Fighter camp is more costumes and more DLC all day. And people are like, what the fuck, Capcom? Please fix the problems. And I don't know how many people in the chat have been in a business situation where what you want is not what you're told to do. I have been in the software industry many times, and there have been many times that, I was in QA. And there was so many times that, there were so many times where, as the QA staff, we would be like, look, you cannot release the product as it is. This functionality doesn't work. It's not a high quality. And the upper management's like, we need it out by this date. This needs to be released by this date. We're like, well, we still need to test this functionality, that functionality, and that functionality. And they're like, okay, so what can you cut from there to make us hit our deadline? And you're like, no, we don't want to cut anything. We want to make sure all this shit works. And they're like, no, you did not answer the question. What can you cut from your testing to make sure that we come out at the right time so that we don't miss our deadline? I don't know how many people have experienced this kind of situation, and it's unfortunately it's a very realistic situation. I can imagine right now Capcom is sitting there going, shit, we need to fix all this stuff. Please, can we fix all this stuff? And then the upper management saying, make more costumes to make up for the amount of money that Street Fighter V did not make. Everyone talks about how little it sold, compared to expectations. And it's a frustrating thing that's problematic. And yeah, I'm making plenty of arguments on why we shouldn't support Capcom. I've never said at this point in time that we should support Capcom. I'm saying at this point in time, we should hope that Street Fighter V gets better, and that even if we don't support Capcom and Capcom dies, it will hurt us in the long run. Right? It's hurt us in the long run. And not only that, it's not just Capcom. Every company goes through this, right? Every company goes through this. If you think this doesn't happen to a lot of other companies as well, I don't know what you're thinking, right? Like Injustice keeps coming out with new characters. It's like, hey, buy these new characters. Buy this DLC is like the wave of the future right now because it's like 10 times more expensive to make games than it was a long time ago. So it's just like I have a little more sympathy because I've been in these kind of situations, so I understand it. But again, Capcom needs to do something. And the thing that bothers me about the whole Season 3 rumors about Super Street Fighter V is that I have talked about on this show how that it's a terrible thing to do to try to fix everything all at once. Because if you release a Super Street Fighter V and it has everything that we asked for, like a fix to Ken's face, and it has a rematch, better button configs, better netcode, all that stuff like that, the players are going to see that and be like, this is awesome, and then they're going to forget like 2 months later. That's just not how gamers work. Gamers need a steady diet of positivity. So I still think that they should be releasing fixes little by little as we go, because that will definitely get them back into better graces than releasing one giant Super Street Fighter V, in my opinion. So, we don't know that, right? We don't know that, Camino. We don't know that Street Fighter V is never getting fixed. We don't know that, right? Because there's been a lot of rumors to the contrary already. A lot of people talking about the fact that, there was, take it with a grain of salt. Someone out there was like, oh, look, I data mined all these cool things out of Street Fighter V. Take that with a grain of salt. That's not substantiated, neither here nor there. But if any of that is true, that means they are trying to fix some stuff. So, but we'll see what happens with that. In any case, I don't even know where I was, but that's the whole point of these episodes, is that I ramble and that we go into all sorts of different directions. But I'm just trying to talk about where my statement of saying if Street Fighter V dies, the FGC dies along with it. It's more just that the FGC that we know right now stagnates, it changes a lot, the growth shrinks, and a lot of opportunities are going to go by the wayside, right? And the FGC is not going to go anywhere. The FGC is going to stay alive just fine. There are plenty of awesome games out there that aren't Street Fighter V, and the FGC will continue to move on, as it were. It's just not going to continue to grow as it was. And it'll take a few years before it gets back to that point where we do gain that momentum and have that potential to grow as we duel it out and battle it out to find the new game to represent the fighting game community that everyone will start to hate. That's the ironic part too. I would love Street Fighter V to die and Dragon Ball Z to come and take its place, and then Dragon Ball Z becomes the face of the fighting game community, and Dragon Ball Z is the last game played on every Sunday, and every tournament starts catering to Dragon Ball fighters, Dragon Ball Fighter Z all over the place, and then all of a sudden everyone's going to start shitting on that game. They're going to be talking about how it's a simple button mashy game, how it's not complicated, that it's stupid, and all of a sudden all the different genres are going to hate on Dragon Ball Fighter Z. It's going to happen. I guarantee you that's going to happen. Absolutely, it's going to happen. Yeah, you're going to have people calling it weebs and whatever like that. Dude, it's totally going to happen. People just don't realize that's how it is. I mean, I predicted this reaction to Street Fighter V back during Street Fighter 4 when everybody was mad at Street Fighter 4. You know, it's just like, this is just going to happen. Now, obviously, Street Fighter V has infinitely more problems than when Street Fighter 4 did when it came out, so there's definitely a lot more reasons for valid criticism of the game. However, let's talk... Oh, yeah, Asians can hella be weebs. Are you kidding me? All right. So, yeah, again, the fighting game community will live just fine. The fighting game community will move on. It's just not going to have the same growth. It's not going to have the same potential. It's not going to have the same impact in esports. It's not going to have the same kind of ability to be an industry that it is right now. So, having said that, let's talk about what Boats and Joes was referencing. Let's talk about the esports side of things. A lot of people have come up to me and said, James, I don't give a shit about the esports stuff. I'd rather have the fighting game community go back to that grassroots, because fuck esports, fuck all this stupid shit that's been going on, fuck all the politics. I hate all this shit. I don't care about getting on TV. I don't care about all that crap. I'd rather have us making good games in a grassroots community. Fuck all that noise. All that esports shit can go hang itself, right? I don't care about all that crap. And I totally get that, because I was kind of in the same place a few years back. And in fact, I'm kind of still in the same place. The only reason why my opinion has changed is because I feel like the fighting game community has its own 2 feet to stand on. Back when it was during the time of merging FGC with MLG, I didn't want to do that because we would have been reliant on MLG. Nowadays, if we merge with MLG, MLG would be reliant on us. Things are very different than how it was before. And, you know, without giant corporate backing, we've managed to get to the Mandalay Bay with Evo, right? I mean, like, that's grassroots. I mean, honestly, there's no corporate backing to that. There's no venture capitalism to that. Evo is still literally run by a bunch of guys who play fighting games, and it's like they actually sell, you know, like booth space and advertisement and stuff like that. It is a completely self-sustainable event, which is freaking amazing, which is just really, really, really crazy. My Felicia figure is the best, dude. I love that thing, dude. And there's only 400 made, so suck my nuts, assholes. But yeah, so he's a Nina player. Yeah, that's true. He is. But so here's the thing, right? So a lot of people said, I don't care about esports, James. That's why everything that you're telling me means nothing. Street Fighter V can die for all I care. And fuck esports, basically. And, you know, to that I say, fine, that's cool. I can't really argue with that. I can't say anything about that. There's nothing I can do to talk about that, because, yes, I do have a personal stake in this. I do have a place where this is a very personal thing for me. So all I can do is explain to people my point of view. And you don't have to agree with me. You don't have to change your mind. You can still say fuck esports and whatever like that. You can still do all that stuff. And again, I do not begrudge that at all. At all. I totally get it, and I totally understand why, you know what, you just don't care about this esports stuff. The reason why it's important to me nowadays is because, all these people are saying, like, you know what, I don't care about the esports, it doesn't have to grow, whatever like that. I have put 20 plus years of my life into this whole entire thing, right? I've put 20 years of my life into this entire thing. And this is not about me justifying my life, right? This is not me justifying my life and saying, oh, if it goes esports, that justifies everything I did. My point of bringing up the fact that I have been in this for 20 plus years is I just fucking love fighting games, right? I really fucking love fighting games. Fighting games is something so great. And it is one of the most beautiful, talented, most skillful, artistic, amazing things that exists out there. And in this 20 plus years out there that I have been seeing all this stuff, I have made so many friends. My best friends are all in the fighting game community. My family is in the fighting game community. Yeah, there's definitely some bad eggs in the fighting game community. I'm not going to lie. And different people are going to think different people are bad eggs. But I love all of these people here, right? I think that all these people here are wonderful people. However, we're at a point right now where we're trying to tell people that you can play these video games and do something with your life with them. And all these people are my friend. I consider friends and family at this point in time. And I don't want to be lying to them. I just don't want to be lying to them. It's every bit my fault that these people are getting into this, because as a commentator, I'm trying to build up the hype. I'm trying to get more people into the FGC. I'm trying to get more people to watch the game and stuff like that. And there are people who are legitimately right now fighting between going to school or from doing this fighting game stuff. And they are in positions where the fighting game thing is very real for them. I'm not talking about players who are just like, oh, I could be good. Like, I'm talking about like top 5 legit US players right now. They have to be making this decision for themselves right now. Like, top 5 legit US players have to make this they have to make this decision right now. And I do not want anybody to go into this and come out of it regretting the decision that they've made. My goal right now is to try to get the fighting community not to the point where it's rich. I don't care if anybody is wealthy. I don't care if anybody is making a shit ton of money. I am living the starving artist life right now, and I'm happier this way than I was when I was making a lot of money at my day job, right? My whole point is that I just want to see if we can get to a point where the fighting game community, the players who dedicate themselves to it and work hard at it, don't regret their decision later on in life. Because right now it is super easy to do that. It's super easy to do that. You can dedicate a bunch of times to learning fighting games. And yeah, I know there's a lot more to Kuroda's recent depression than just the fighting games. But one of the things that that has fueled a lot of his depression, if people didn't know, he's been very, very depressed. The top level, basically the greatest third strike player on the planet. One of the reasons why he's really been depressed is because he wonders if all the time he spent on fighting games was a waste of his time. And it's a really frustrating situation. Like, I hear that, I read about that, and it literally kills me. Like, it hurts me a lot, right? So here's the thing. Yeah, exactly. Like Blizzard, Overwatch, eSports doing a contract style league, things like that is, it's a cool thing. It's a cool thing. Now, the fighting game community can't do that because we have no governing body. And I actually prefer that. I don't want any one particular governing body to take over the fighting game community, because if they do, then they could decide to kill certain games. Like, literally, they can be like, you know what? Street Fighter V makes us all the money. Fuck all these other games. No KOF. No any of this other shit. No KI. No Injustice. All that crap. Like, that's what a governing body could do, which is dangerous. That's why I do not want a governing body in the fighting game community. So we're not in a position where we can actually do something like that, where Blizzard can demand that Overwatch, players and companies are signed to at least 50K contracts and stuff like that. The FGC is just not in a place where we can actually accomplish that kind of thing. However, I see what we've been going through recently, this growth, this ability to get to this point where we are really starting to turn ourselves into an industry here. And yes, maybe it's me being a little opportunistic, and yes, maybe this does make me a shill in terms that I do have some stake in this. But, you know, the stake is not in it for me. I'm not in here for this, you know, for the stake for myself, right? I mean, I think that this is a rare opportunity here. And, you know, we can really grow someplace if we make sure that the growth is well done, right? So that's the kind of stake that we have in this kind of situation. So what we have here, is an opportunity to grow. And I know what kind of situation that we have the potential for. So yes, I don't want Street Fighter to die, because I do not want to miss this opportunity. Street Fighter V is giving us the kind of things that we could only dream of. And let me tell you, man, I have been patient, more patient than any of you can imagine. And it's no shock to me that both me and Alex Vi, two of the longest people who have been in this scene, are kind of in this position right now. You know, both of us have been expressing very, very similar kind of situations, right? That we are talking about, like, how much this Street Fighter means and how much the growth it means. A lot of people just haven't been in the community as long. They haven't seen it. Like, I still always think back to that Bang the Machine scene where Vi is, like, talking about Japan. He's like, yeah, man, can you imagine they have the shit in stadiums in Japan and shit like that? And the people sitting next to him are like, what? You know, like, what the hell? And then, like, they just linger on this shot of Vi after saying that, and you could just see the look on his face just being like, can you imagine? Can you imagine if we could ever get to this point? And I can tell you right now, we talked about it back then, and all of us knew that it was bullshit, right? All of us knew that we would never get there. All of us knew that it would never happen, that fighting games would never become something that would be big enough to take up a stadium in Mandalay Bay, that hundreds and thousands of people would watch on Twitch, and millions of people total would watch over the weekend, including on ESPN2. But all of us back then knew that it was complete bullshit. Bullshit, right? And yet here we are. And so that kind of opportunity now for players like us, for the people in our position, it's just like, man, like, this is, like, you know, it's like when you're young and you see all these stupid things where people are like, you know, or, you know, you get those, like, really inspirational, motivational quotes like, don't let your dreams be dreams, right? I mean, like, those are the kind of things that drive people, right? The reason why you fight for these things is because they are your dreams. And, you know, one of the things I told Mike Ross a long time ago is that, you know, it's going to take martyrs. And, you know, right now, that's kind of what a lot of us are doing. We're martyring because we're not going to see the benefits of this in the long term. But we're trying our hardest to make this work so that people can make this a career, not to be rich, so that people can actually go somewhere after they stop playing. After they stop playing. That's the most important part right there. That is the most important part. After they stop playing, they have somewhere to go. If we can make the fighting game community an industry to some degree, like I said, that it's not baller status, but we have places for players to go, whether it's coaches, whether it's TOs, whether it's helping TOs, whether it's becoming part of the media team, whether it becomes being a commentator, whether it means becoming just a community manager for a game, whether it's going on to making your own fighting games, etc., etc. That's what we're trying to craft here. We're trying to craft a future for people. That's kind of how I look at it right now. That's the position that I'm coming from. So when a lot of people tell me, like, fuck esports, who gives a shit about esports? To me, that means that you're telling me that that you're basically telling me to tell all of my good friends and families to fuck off. Basically, when you say fuck esports at this point in time. I would have been with you 10 years ago. I would have been like, fuck esports. But like I said, the growth from the last even 3 years has been astronomical. I would have never guessed we would be this close to achieving something. But here's the thing, right? And then another thing too is like, so going back to it, this is kind of why I'm trying to help Street Fighter V. I'm trying to push for it. Yeah, Capcom's doing a lot of stupid shit, And like I can't even sit here and say support Capcom because like God, like stop, right? Like all the stupid things that keeps happening from them, and like it's frustrating. But then we get into a situation where let's talk about when I did go to Chile this weekend, and this was super eye-opening as well. Because when I went down there and I saw the passion of all these people, when I saw all these people really pushing hard, trying to grow the fighting game community, they have this awesome school there that a couple of guys are running. And they're just trying to get kids into fighting games and teach them there, put them in a safe environment so that they can't be taken advantage of in terms of like, fake sponsors and stuff like that, trying to educate them, trying to show them how to grow as fighting game players. They're making their own fighting game down there. The Chileans are making their own fighting games. There's like a staff of 20 people making this really nice looking and really, this game is coming along very nicely. And it's 20 people making this game right now. And it's awesome. And you see all these people playing these video games and watching these fighting games. Mysterio's trying to find a way to get his visa to work so that he can travel outside of the country and all these things like that. And you know what? The only thought that's coming into my mind is I feel like we're selling them a lie. Like that is a legit thought that crossed my mind as I looked into that, because the fighting game community is still very small in the States, and all these people are like trying to do all these crazy things like that. And, it kills me. It kills me to see a lot of that because I love their passion and their growth is amazing. And I want them to succeed so badly. And that just makes me want to work that much harder to make esports work for the FGC, because the bigger we grow, the better chance they have to reap those kind of benefits. Right? This is in Santiago. Yes, this is Omen of Sorrow is the name of the fighting game that they're developing and everything like that. And you can see it. Old Spice had a booth down there that the booth was literally nothing but fighting games. They had HDR, they had KI, they had Omen of Sorrow beta in there. They had Injustice 2 there. They had like 7 different fighting games. I took a picture of all of them. And that's all the booth was. And there's this line around the corner of the booth of people to stand in line so that 2 people can go in, step up to a machine, play, and then walk off. I don't even think they got to choose which fighting game they wanted to play. But that's kind of the presence that they had in Chile. And, to see this kind of thing just makes me that much more want to work my ass off to make the fighting game community succeed. And, speaking on the topic of how Street Fighter V is kind of that game that's shepherding us into that area right now, we were in a position when this was going on. Oh, hang on a second, guys. We were, like, I was talking to a bunch of players there, and a lot of the players there were like, man, I just don't like Street Fighter V. I just don't like Street Fighter V. This game is not fun for me. And I'm like, fine, that's great. Play another game. Go play another game. Go play Injustice. Go play Guilty Gear. Go play these other games. You don't have to play Street Fighter V, right? Go learn another game and find one that you enjoy. And a lot of those people responded to me. They're like, I can't. There's no scene out here. There's no future for those games. That's not going to get me to travel the world. That's not going to get me to the point where I can become a known player. That's not going to help me become a sponsored player. Street Fighter is the only game that's going to allow that for me. And, like, the perception that we have here in the States of, like, well, fuck it, all the other games are doing great. That's a completely different perception that you have in other parts of the country, in parts of the world. And it sucks. It sucks because I don't want everyone playing a game that nobody likes to play, right? Like, I think that's shitty. Which is why, in my opinion, I really want to fix the game, right? I really want Street Fighter V to become a better game. My point is not accept Street Fighter V. And again, everybody that kept talking to me after last week was like, why can't I criticize Street Fighter V? And my point was like, please, please criticize it all, everything that you can. Criticize it all you can, right? The whole point was just, it's the negativity that's frustrating me. You can critique things. Negativity does not equal critiques. Critiques can be done in a positive way, and I don't mean that they have a positive tone. I just mean they could be productive, right? Telling Capcom to go die on a fire or like, fuck you, Capcom, is not productive, right? Like, I know Reddit, for example, is, our Street Fighter has that poll where they try to get people to talk and vote on what the thing they like the least about Street Fighter V, on what Street Fighter V should focus on. And I think that's great, because that really does give a clear example to Capcom on what they should fix first, on what people are focusing on mostly, what they would like to see fixed. And nobody votes in that thing, right? The guy who runs it is frustrated because no one's voting in that thing. He gets very few responses. And Capcom has actually, according to him, told him that they actually do pay attention to that thread. And so, there are productive ways to do it, but it's just, look, I'm not even going to front. It's a lot easier to come on the internet and just shit on things, right? I do it too. I do it all the time too, right? And it's frustrating. And a lot of people, I don't have any argument against that when people say Capcom doesn't care about the list, they don't listen, whatever, all that stuff like that, and Kappa Face is about Capcom paying attention and stuff like that. Yeah, I can't really say anything because, again, they're doing a really shitty job of communicating. But, I just don't think that there's anything that they can communicate that would make people happy, to be honest with you. If they said, hey, we see all the problems, we know about all the problems, we're just not allowed to fix them right now, that doesn't make anybody feel any better. That's kind of what I'm assuming is going on. And when I explain that, everyone's like, well, that gives me even more reason not to support Capcom. So why would Capcom tell you that then? If what they tell you, by telling you that they're listening to you, will make you hate Capcom more, why would they tell you that? Right? Why would they tell you that? So, they're in a really kind of shitty position right now. And yeah, the Left Behind stuff, the agenda stuff, look, don't get me started on that, okay? Don't get me started on that, because that is, there's some problems that need to be fixed for sure. So, but see, I don't even know if are they really telling lies? I mean, okay, maybe they are. I don't know, give me some examples, Noel, Beats by Noel Brown. Give me some examples. Everyone doesn't feel like that this is in control. This is everyone feels like they're not in control right now, and they can't affect anything. I mean, to be honest with you, a long time ago, we never had any control. Like, it wasn't that we didn't think we had control. We knew we had no control. And that is a difference between back then and nowadays. And that's the interesting thing about social media, is that it really does give everybody a false sense of control, right? Because honestly, back then it was like, we ran into these problems in these fighting games. We were like, well, fucking Capcom doesn't care about us. Well, we're just going to have to live with role canceling. Shrug. And weirdly enough, role canceling ended up making CVS2 better, but that's neither here nor there. Nowadays in social media, and having the ability to complain and be loud about it, and knowing that Capcom is involved with everything, does give everybody hope. And as they say in Shawshank Redemption, hope is a dangerous thing. But you know what? Sometimes it takes 5 years of Shawshank Redemption spoiler warning. If you haven't seen it, please turn down your volume right now and wait till you see me wave again before you can turn on the volume again. Okay, sometimes it actually takes years of digging a hole through a fucking wall and then crawling through miles of shit to actually get what it is that you want. And that's kind of where my standpoint is right now. We are crawling through a lot of shit right now. And hopefully that does make things better. That doesn't mean Street Fighter 6, by the way. That means Street Fighter 5 right now. Okay, you can turn the volume back on. You can turn the volume back on right now. The movie is older than Punk. Oh my god. Oh shit. But yeah, so the whole point is that I'm hoping to improve Street Fighter V. Because the other thing that people don't understand is if Street Fighter V fails, and that's a lesson to Capcom, there is no Street Fighter 6. People have to realize that. Any lessons that they learn about Street Fighter V right now, if it dies, is don't make Street Fighter. That's the lesson that they're going to learn. Because it's just not... Dude, who wants to go through this? Man, even if Street Fighter 6... I mean, Street Fighter 5 is a direct result of Street Fighter 4. It is a direct result of Street Fighter 4. Everything that Street Fighter 5 is because everyone's like, Street Fighter 4 is shitty. Invincible backdashes are shitty. Throw option selects are shitty. You know, light buttons are being able to confirm off of light buttons are shitty. Uppercut FADCs are shitty. One frame links are shitty. And so they said, okay, your guys are all mad at Street Fighter 4. So let's fix all of that stuff. Let's get rid of invincible backdashes. Let's put in an input buffer so one frame links are easy. Let's make uppercuts back to being risky like they should have been. Let's make it so that when you crouch throw, you stand up and you whiff a throw so that you get beat up. Let's even punish it more so that if I do a button at the same timing as a lighter button, I beat it because of priority system. And fuck that, let's add some crush counters too to make it even more powerful. Let's make it even more powerful so you can blow up people from trying to tech throws and make frame traps that much more effective. Now we have Street Fighter V. Now everybody's mad at Street Fighter V and they want us to go back to the perfection that was Ultra Street Fighter 4. Irony? Just a little bit of irony there, right? Street Fighter V is directly a result. So Street Fighter V is a direct result of Capcom listening, okay? And I don't mean that to be sassy with my little shimmy here, but I'm just saying Street Fighter V is a direct result to them listening to the people, right? Yes, they went overboard. Absolutely, they went overboard. And all the systems came together in a way that we weren't expecting. It affected footsies. It affected frame traps. It affected that whole knockdown game. All those things added together turned out to be a problem. But we wouldn't have known that if Street Fighter V hadn't been around for a year and less than a half, right? The game has been around for a year and 5 months. And we're figuring that out now. So now we can fix it, but I don't want to fix it in the middle of a season. I like that Capcom is not changing things in the middle of a season. And I said this on Twitter, if Street Fighter 3 comes out, Street Fighter 5 Season 3 comes out, and nothing is addressed, and we're in the same situation, the gameplay is pretty much exactly the same, alright, I have nothing to say at that point in time. Fuck it. Fuck Street Fighter 5 and fuck Capcom. But I know that, between Street Fighter 3 New Generations and Street Fighter 3 Third Strike was about 3 to 4 years, right? Alpha 1 to Alpha 3 was probably maybe 3 years or so like that. The third year is always kind of one of the most crucial ones. Even Street Fighter 4, don't forget, it was a year in the arcades before it came out on consoles for a year, and then Super Street Fighter 4 came out. Season 3 of every one of those games has always kind of been the one that really kind of fixed a lot of problems with that. So, dude, when are we going to get a decent netcode? I have no fucking clue, because that is frustrating as all hell. Trust me, I totally feel you on that. I don't know why they haven't just grabbed Tony Cannon or Mike Z and said, hey, can you help us fix this netcode, please? Because they'll know exactly what's wrong with it. They'll know exactly what's wrong with it, but it might just also be the fact that they're in Japan. I mean, that's definitely one of the biggest problems, is that they're in Japan. And unfortunately, you look between Nintendo and Capcom, when the companies are in Japan, it's definitely a lot bigger problem. ArcSys has barely been doing any support for Guilty Gear. Where's my Guilty Gear World Tour? Where's my Guilty Gear World Tour? Why do we not have a Guilty Gear World Tour yet, ArcSys? Please. They have Arc Revo Cup. They have qualifier events. No. Let's do a world tour. Let's actually give prize money. Let's have Guilty Gear Premier events. Let's have Guilty Gear Ranked events and stuff like that. Please, please, please. How much would need to be changed in Season 3? So that's what Zoljinx asks. If Season 3 comes out, and yeah, like I said, I don't think the input buffer is going anywhere. I don't think the priority system, the crush counter system is going anywhere. But if there does not seem to be any conscious efforts to, one, improve a lot of the things outside the game. Let's talk outside the game, too, because that's a problem. We definitely need better netcode. We definitely need, second player rematch. We need better button configs. We need a fixed Ken face and stuff like that, A lot of those things, if a lot of those things aren't addressed, that's a huge problem. If there's no arcade mode, that's a problem. If the gameplay comes out and, what I'm hoping for is that new systems, something added to the game. It doesn't even have to be anything major, right? Because if they address all the issues that we've talked about, we're going to get the opposite of Street Fighter V, in which they're going to react to all the negative stuff from Season 1, 2, revert a bunch of stuff, and then it ends up being a different version of a shitty game. Because like I said, Street Fighter V is a reaction to Street Fighter 4. So what we're trying to accomplish here, is let's get some new systems in place to see if we can refine what Street Fighter V is. Because Street Fighter V is not a terrible game. I'm sorry, I know that's a very subjective opinion, but it is not a terrible game right now. There's a lot that's good in this game. There's just a lot of weird pieces that when they add up together don't seem to work out. If they add a new mechanic for a defensive option, and I have plenty of ideas too. I've talked about these ideas to people, but I just can't affect anything. If they add a new defensive option, if they add some more variety, if they make it so that combos are a little more creative, if they give people more ability to express themselves, I think that would be really great. I think that would be really, really, really great. So, no, people who didn't like Street Fighter 4 did not like Street Fighter. Wait, real question: did people who didn't like Street Fighter 4 end up liking Super or Ultra? Are people who didn't enjoy SF5 going to enjoy a Super or Ultra version? Oh, I see. The original Street Fighter 4. It's very similar situation. And in fact, yes, a lot of people did get turned around on Street Fighter 4 as we kept going. Super definitely helped a little bit of things here. But it was also, again, like people said, a different age, right? Like, people didn't realize that our feedback had any meaning back then, right? So Seth Killian was a new concept to us. Having that kind of feedback that we could give to Seth Killian was a new concept. That was still during the time where we just played it and we liked it. That was the kind of thing. And so a lot of people just dealt with it. And as the game kept getting updated, outside of AE, which was the biggest flub in Street Fighter 4's life cycle, it did improve a lot of things. And in fact, it did increase a lot of sales, and it kept growing the brand, and it made the competitive Twitch side of Street Fighter continue to grow more and more. And yeah, more people kept coming into the game. Whenever a new version came out, people actually bought it. People actually bought those things, Street Fighter 4 in Super, a lot of people liked it, and a lot of people thought it sucked. But honestly, even in AE, everyone knew it sucked. AE 2012, a lot of people thought it sucked. And Ultra, still, a lot of people thought Ultra sucked. I mentioned this as well on social media that, when Ultra Street Fighter 4 was the game and Street Fighter 5 was but just an announcement, man, I used to sit there and talk about how Ultra Street Fighter 4 was in a great place. How the game was really balanced, how the game is really fun, the variety is really good, there's a lot of depth to the game, all this stuff like that. And everyone's like, shut up, James, you have a stake in it. You're a fucking Capcom, you're a shill. You're stupid, whatever, Ultra Street Fighter 4 sucks, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what the hell, man? I was known as a Capcom fanboy defender. And now here I am sitting here talking about how Street Fighter 4 was not as great as you guys remembered. And Street Fighter 5 is not that terrible. And everyone's like, you fucking shill and whatever like that. Dude, God. Yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. No, that's why I didn't use that word back then. Well, okay, I guess I did. Yeah. In any case, like that's just the way it is, right? I mean, like that's just how it's such a weird situation for Capcom to be in right now. And I do not envy them, and they really do need to get their shit together. But this is why I keep talking about how I'm trying to promote more of a positive kind of environment. And I don't mean, I guess using the word positive and negative are probably bad words to use. I should just say constructive and unconstructive. Like those are probably the words that I should be using. Does having a world tour means you support the scene now? Does every game company have to set aside a budget for competitions for you to commentate in before it counts as supporting the scene? No, that's not true. That's not true at all. But it helps. It helps grow your game. It helps grow the awareness of your game. It's not, like I said, it's not for me. It's not for me. It's to help promote the game. It's help to promote the game. Like to be able to say, hey, come to CEO because CEO is a stop for the Tekken World Tour and the Guilty Gear World Tour. Like, it adds prestige, it adds stakes, and it adds more storylines. It adds storylines. And as much as people don't want to think about this, storylines are huge. Like one of the things that people love those World Warriors of Capcom Cup videos that David and I made a long time ago for Capcom because it's narrative. It's narrative about the players. It's really interesting to go, hey man, NuckleDu had no presence in Street Fighter V until the late end of the year, and all of a sudden he showed up and he had the storyline of how he had like some personal issues, or Infiltration was the greatest all the way up through CEO, and then Tokido beat him. He won Evo, but then afterwards he had this fall off. Could he possibly be able to recover in time for Capcom Cup? Like these kind of stories, it's the human element of the FGC that really crafts interest and a lot of the drama, and it's really what made, like for example, Street Fighter V at Evo still probably one of the most compelling top 8s that was there, right? And having the world tours kind of adds to that. It's just, it adds a season. It adds the ability to weave a narrative. It has the ability to tell a story. And I think that's important. I think that's really important. I mean, people used to talk about poker on TV, and poker really started growth from two things, right? One is the whole cam, so that people could actually see what they're playing and see what they're bluffing. And two is when they started profiling all the players, when they were talking about, look, it's Chris Jesus Ferguson, it's Daniel Negreanu, it's Phil Ivey, it's Phil Hellmuth, it's, you know, once they started actually profiling a lot of the players, it added that human element. Doyle Brunson, like this great story about Doyle Brunson and everything. Once you start adding the human element, it makes everything that much more easily worth investing in. You know, it's an interesting part. That's what I'm hoping to get out of a world tour from Guilty Gear, for example. I even if I don't commentate it at all, I would love to commentate it. I'm not going to lie. I want to commentate it because I love Guilty Gear to death. But even if I were not to commentate it, I still love it. I'm not commentating Injustice. I love that Injustice has a world tour. Because now we can say, oh, at these tour events, Sonic Fox has finally won his first one. You know, like it's interesting to be able to talk about those things. It's cool. It's cool, and it adds the human element to it, which I think is really important. I think the narratives are really good right now. Yeah, see, I mean, even Fitz says it right now. He knows the narratives for SF5 and Injustice, but he doesn't know the narratives of Guilty Gear Rev or KOF. And, you know, that's kind of a consequence right now. And the narratives are what are the most interesting part about a lot of these things. So, yeah, so Burzservbot says, it's okay for SF5 to die. There will always be a scene for other fighting games, and the FGC will truly become Grassroots once again. I just addressed that. You must have just came in here. And I totally get that. And you are absolutely welcome to have that mentality and have that thought process. Yes, if Street Fighter dies, the fighting game community goes nowhere. It stays, it stagnates a little bit, and it becomes more Grassroots again. And yeah, to a lot of people, that's great. But the whole reason why I'm talking about this right now is because I have a stake in it that I don't want it to stay, I don't want it to stagnate, I don't want it to go back to grassroots, because I have so many people in this community who are my friends and family, who I want to succeed, who I want to be able to dedicate. Because the thing about it is, if you can't dedicate your all to these fighting games, we're not going to see the best play, right? Tokido is not going to win Street Fighter V the way that he did if he doesn't have the ability to spend all of his time really practicing and diving into that game. When you have the ability to dedicate your life to this, because you know it's going somewhere, because you know it becomes something that you will not regret later on in life, you will get the optimal performance possible. So, if we can grow to that scene, I just think fighting games will become even greater than they are now. You know, there's definitely an appeal to grassroots, and I never want to lose that. That's why I don't want a universal governing body for the FGC. This is why I don't know if you guys haven't noticed this yet, but only at EVO, top 8, is the only time I have worn a tie this year on a stream. This is not an accident. This is a conscious effort on my part, because fuck that whole concept. I don't want to clean it up. I've gone back to just wearing t-shirts and a shirt. A nice shirt, but a t-shirt underneath. Because I don't want that to happen. My goal is not to clean up the FGC. I don't want to lose any of the hype. I don't want to lose any of the pop-offs. I don't want to lose any of the personality. We have to keep all of those things. We have to keep all of those things, because if we don't keep that, we're not the fighting game community anymore. And trust me, I am in a position where I am trying to keep that. And so what am I trying to do? Fuck the shirt and ties. Like, seriously, I only did it for EVO because that's my respect to EVO. That's my respect. EVO has the prestige that I felt like I wanted to wear my EVO tie. Like, I have a special tie that I just, like, this is my EVO tie, like that. But even Saturday and Friday at EVO, I never wore a tie. Because, you know what? We're the FGC. That's not us. That is not us. I don't want anybody thinking that they should be like, oh, why isn't Yipes putting on a tie? You know, I don't want anyone to think that. Like, if you want to put on a tie, a shirt and tie, that's more power to you. But I don't think that that should be a requirement or anything like that. So, in any case, I don't want to lose a personality that is the FGC. And I don't ever want it to lose its grassroots. I do not want it to lose its grassroots. Which is why I want to try to maintain in this position. Like, I mean, like, I'm not trying to stay relevant in order to be significant to the scene. Like, oh, I'm James Chen, pay attention to me, I'm important. Like, no, that's not why I'm trying to stay relevant here, despite me being old. Like, I could easily say, you know what, I'm over 40, you know what, fuck this shit, I'm just gonna go and get my day job, make 10 times the amount of money that I'm making right now, and live a super happy life, not even have to worry about social media and everything. I could just be super happy right now. But I love this shit too much. Everybody in here is my family. Everybody in here is my friends. And I want them all to succeed, not just the players. It's not just Smug or Knuckledew or Punk, these young guys who have to make these very crucial life decisions right now. It's the guys who are like on Tenno Productions, who quit their job to do this kind of thing. It's the TOs like Jabali, who quit his job to be only a TO at this point in time, like that, right? It's all these people out here who are making this a career. Guys like Kugi, who got hired to do graphics for Nintendo, for Splatoon at E3, and he did all their graphics package, and Nintendo was like, this is amazing. This is the best thing we've ever seen. Like, that kind of opportunity for people in the FGC only came because the FGC is there. And it makes me emotional, and like, I will get weepy if I think about it too much, about like, to see that it is because of the FGC that some of these people are getting these successful opportunities. It's because of the FGC. It's because of what we've crafted, and we keep getting talent from within our own community. You know, I talk to somebody else and they're like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, but I may be able to have a permanent job on the Tenno production team starting soon. And I'm like, that's great. Now you can keep doing this stuff and do it as a career. These kind of things are what's important to me. And that is what I'm trying to get. But at the same time, like, here's another fact that I don't think a lot of people know, is we're completely allowed to swear on the Capcom Pro Tour. Nobody has ever told us not to use the F word on stream. We're absolutely allowed to do so. If we did so on the Capcom Pro Tour, we would not get punished for it, right? So if I'm at CEO Top 8 and I accidentally use the F word, this doesn't mean anything. No one's going to care. Like, that's just the way it works, right? Like, people have to realize that there is, like, we're trying our best to try to keep FGC as the personality is. You know what I mean? We're trying. And no, if anyone ever says Combo Fiend is a fraud, like, anyone ever says anything like that again, I will freaking ban you, because Combo Fiend is the most legit human being on the planet. And again, this is unfair because I know him personally. I've known him since 2002. I've known him since 2000, 2001. You will not find a more legit person than Combo Fiend. Like, that guy is just like, he is like the fucking greatest. Like, he is one of the most awesomely wonderful people that I know. And he has definitely been thrust in a really, really shitty position. He is in a really, really shitty position. And I know he wants MVCI to be just the most fantastic game. And I'm sure it's all because of him that the game already looks as creative and sick as it already does right now. So I will tell you this. So, Yeah. So Wesley says he actually enjoyed the streams more once the cursing went away. First few streams were just nothing but F words and they barely came up for air. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. So there's a balance between, you know, being listenable and actually like a productive commentary and trying to clean it up for esports. You know, I will never try to commentate a match by going, and he's coming around here, oh my god, and look at this, he's coming in here, he just used this, oh, and the super meter was shut off, and he was able to kill him. You know, like, I'm not gonna do sports commentary voice. I fucking refuse to do that. I will just be yelling and crying and going apeshit and yelling, is it gonna kill on stream for my whole entire life. My whole entire life. That's just the way it's going to be. If anyone tells me to clean that up, I'm just going to be telling them, fuck you, no. Like, because that's not what it's going to be, right? So, yeah, commentating well and dirty words don't always mix. But my whole point is that we aren't trying to clean ourselves up for esports. That's my whole point, is that we are doing everything we can to try to remain as grassroots as possible. Where would you draw the line for destructive criticism? You haven't stated it explicitly yet, but how does destructive criticism actually harm the FGC in your view? The reason why I think destructive criticism is bad is because after last week and after a lot of the social media interactions that I had after last week's Uncensored episode, I actually had a lot of people come up to me and they're like, look, James, I have friends who I've introduced to the fighting game community, and all they see is this negativity, and they've left. They're like, I don't like this. This is shit. And they left. They went away. And we lost fighting game community members. We lost FGC because of how negative everything has been. With everybody saying nothing but negative shit all the time, it has really created this environment of negativity. Like I said, even Vi has noted it. He's like, I've never seen the FGC be this negative before. I've never seen this kind of negativity. It's Capcom's fault for their bad game, but at the same time, it's not all bad, right? Like, it's a hive mind kind of thing right now. There's definitely some good things about it. Like I said, Evo Top 8 was fucking amazing, right? And, like, I don't know if every game could have produced that kind of thing, right? And, you know, like, you can sit here and say it's Capcom's fault for making a bad game, but like I said, you don't have to have things be destructive. You can still have things be constructive. Like, if people came in here and were like, look at this, Street Fighter V is the main game, and everybody doesn't seem to like it, and they're trying really hard to improve it, and they're trying to talk to Capcom, and Capcom's not listening. It's different than from everybody just being like, you know, fuck Capcom, oh, shills, and blah, 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 fuck you, L.I. Joe, you're a Capcom shill, and da-da-da-da, I hope Marvel dies, yeah, good shit to Dragon Ball for showing why MVCI is shitty when neither game has ever been released. Like, Like, those are two very different things. You can be, like, critical of Street Fighter V and then be like, well, you know what? Maybe MVCI might be good. You know what I mean? But it is very, 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 very negative. And yeah, the negativity is amplified by social media. And that's why I talk about it. That's why I'm really, really frustrated, you know, by what's going on in social media. I think it's a problem. And like I said, I haven't held back. I've been criticizing Street Fighter V. Like I said, on the Tuesday show, there were times where I'd be arguing to David about Street Fighter V. Like, I'm just like, there's a problem with this game. Like, this game is too simple. There's nothing new. You can't express yourself. And I have, basically what I have told everybody, I'll say this right here. So DBFZ looks like it was made with love. Can't say the same about Street Fighter V. It's probably true. That's probably true. I can totally see where that's coming from. But the thing about it is, once DBFZ, once Dragon Ball FighterZ takes over the fighting game community and becomes the biggest thing in the fighting game community, how much of that love do you think will go away with Dragon Ball FighterZ Part 2? I just present that question to you. I will make no comment on it further. So, so that's just the thing, right? Like, I do want Street Fighter V to succeed, despite it being frustrating and having problems. I want it to succeed because I know it has the ability to get us to places where, you know, yeah, it's antithetical sometimes to Grassroots. A lot of people are saying, I don't care about esports, but I do want it to succeed. And the fuck esports thing is always, you know, that's always the mentality. It's like when your favorite band is kind of the small band, and you love this band to death, and as soon as they go mainstream and they make this mainstream poppy song, you're like, fuck this band. Even though years ago you're like, man, why is everybody else so stupid that they don't know that this band is the greatest band on earth, right? That's basically kind of where we're at right now. When you say, you know, fuck esports, I don't want it to grow. I said fuck esports a long time ago. Yes, true, because I wanted us to grow organically, not through venture capitalists, not through mom and dad support, basically. I don't want MLG going like, as long as you're living in my house, you're living by my rules. That's when I was fuck esports. But now that Street Fighter and the FGC in general has gotten to a point where we're in the Mandalay Bay, you know, this is a different kind of esports. How long do you think we should wait on Capcom to turn SF5 into a decent game? It's been a year and a half already. Okay, 2 comments. One, that makes me laugh because already, God, 1 year and a half is nothing. Keep in mind, Ultra Street Fighter 4, which is probably the best version of Street Fighter 4, was 8 years later. 8 years later. 8 years, okay? And we had AE before that, which was the shitty McShitterson of Street Fighter 4, okay? Like, literally, Capcom had to make AE 2012 to apologize for AE, right? But secondly, honestly, I really think Season 3 is a big tipping point. I really honestly think that this coming January, February, whenever Season 3 comes out, is a big turning point. If we do not see a lot of progress in what we as a community, and not through a biased and angry, like, fuck you Capcom set of lenses, can objectively and unbiasedly evaluate the stuff that they do, if they don't do enough, that is a time when we really start to need to look forward and move on. Not only that, but Dragon Ball FighterZ will be out by that time, or close to it. And not only that, but we'll know a lot about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. So honestly, I would say maybe February, March next year is going to be a very, very key month. A very key quarter for the fighting game community. First quarter of 2018. It's going to be a very, very crucial and important period of time for the fighting game community. So I'm not even saying like hold out on Street Fighter V for like 5 more years. That's not even what I'm saying at all, because we're at a different point in time. We should be able to grow a little bit quicker than what we expect from Street Fighter 4. But remember, Street Fighter V, a lot of its shittiness is due to people feedback, right? I still remember when in Street Fighter 4 to Super Street Fighter 4, they nerfed Gen. And everyone was like, what the fuck, Seth? Why would you nerf Gen? They barely gave Guile any buffs. And they were like, what the fuck, Seth? Why would you barely buff Guile? And then everyone found out that in vanilla, Gen was broken as fuck. And Guile turned out to be really strong in Super. The thing about it is, like, people don't always necessarily know what's best for the game, right? It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. It's like, if you let Homer design your car, you're going to end up with something that bankrupts your company. Okay, Street Fighter V is the direct result of the Street Fighter 4 complaints. They took it too far, agreed, and on top of that, they fucked up and didn't put it in arcade mode, had bad net play, and had all these other problems. Yes, totally acknowledge that. But my point is that, like, we have to be able to objectively give these games a shot. Give these games a chance. So, yeah, remember when Evil Ryu was low tier. Yeah, God, vanilla again? Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Oh, God. How angry can an online person be before it crosses the line? Some would argue, why should I cover for Capcom's mistakes? Don't cover for Capcom's mistakes. Don't cover for them at all. Do not cover for their mistakes at all through any means. I have never said to not express your opinion. And in fact, when people are like, I'm not going to buy MVCI because of how shitty Street Fighter V is, and they don't seem to be learning lessons from Street Fighter Cross Tekken. And you know what I say to those guys? Good. Vote with your wallet. Do not buy the game. That is what I tell people. But that's a productive way to do it. That's a productive way to do it. Because the thing about it is, the more you complain about Street Fighter V, the more negativity you produce in the scene. Like I said, Street Fighter V is a gateway drug into the FGC. Those people who were turned away by the negativity that they saw in the FGC could have been future Tekken players. They could have been future Injustice players. They could have been future Guilty Gear players. They could have been future Dragon Ball FighterZ players. But now what their impression is that the fighting game community is a bunch of whiny assholes who just shit on things all day, right? Like, they don't actually want to be a part of it anymore. But they could have came in Street Fighter V and like, this is really cool. Let me watch EVO. And then they watch EVO in 2018 and they're like, holy shit, there's a whole fighting game with DC superheroes? How the fuck did I not know about this? I'm the biggest DC fan in the world. And then they start playing Injustice, right? Or like, oh shit, my friend had Tekken. I went and played Tekken 1 at his house. I remember, holy shit, Tekken looks amazing right now. This is what it's become. Fuck, I want to play this game instead, right? Like, dude, there's just so many ways for growth in the fighting game community that if you channel off the entry point, the gateway drug, you hurt everybody. That is my point. My point is not be positive on Capcom. My point is not, hey, Street Fighter V is great. Kill me now. You know, that's not my point. My point is, let's just try to make the fighting game community seem like a welcoming place so that people have the ability to join, have fun, and grow. And so more people will enjoy the fighting game community, okay? Like, that is, my point is not defend Capcom to say nice things about Capcom. That's why I said be as critical as you want, but let's try just not to be so to the point where that's all we see, right? And the worst thing about it is you have people on E-League who name drop our Kappa. And so everybody who comes in the fighting game community is like, oh, this is where people go to talk about the FGC. And then they go to our Kappa. And then that's what they see, right? Like, this is why I got mad at them last week. Because if that's the entry point into what people see in the fighting game community, we're fucked, right? I mean, that's the whole point. Like, that's seriously the problem. This is why I'm saying, like, we need to be more positive. We need to be more positive. In any case, look, I don't want to yell at R Kappa anymore. And I did issue an apology, a half-hearted apology, but I did definitely want to apologize to the productive members of R Kappa who do good things. And I did apologize for the whole sponsorship shots that I gave The sponsorship thing is really cool. Like I said, one particular instance really frustrated me. So I apologize about that. There are definitely people there who do good things. But overall, it's not a happy place. And if that's going to be the entry point for a lot of people, and a lot of people tweeted me, they're like, you're right, James, fuck R Kappa, because my friend just got into the fighting game community, found R Kappa, and was so disgusted he doesn't play fighting games anymore. Like, that's what R Kappa is doing right now. That is what the negativity is doing, right? I'm not trying to do this kind of, I'm not trying to tell you guys to lie about Capcom. I'm not trying to tell you guys to support them even if you don't want to. My whole point is let people form their own opinions about a lot of things. And don't try to be negative to people who are enjoying it. There's a lot of people, so if that person is that mentally weak that Kappa would do that to them, they'd eventually quit because someone popped off on them. False. 100% false. 100% false. 1,000% false. 1,000% false. 10,000% false. The reason why I say that, Beats by Noel Brown, is because every human in their life has only enough time to dedicate to a certain amount of things. And the way you prioritize that is by what you feel like is worth spending your time on. If I really like basket weaving and I fucking go and people at basket weaving are like, welcome to our community, you are awesome, I'd be like, hey, this is kind of cool. These guys are really nice. They're friendly. So I'm going to become a fucking basket weaver like you can't even fucking imagine, right? So here's the thing. That kind of negativity, if they have like 5 interests, which like every human on the planet has, and they go in and go like, hey, I'm going to get into NASCAR. Hey, these guys are cool. Hey, I'm going to get into movies. Oh, the movie industry is kind of neat. I'm going to get into street fighting games. I'm looking at these wait a minute, these guys are a bunch of assholes. It has nothing to do with weak will of mind or anything like that. It's about priorities and what you want to spend your time on. Do you want to spend your time on a community that is positive and awesome, or do you want to spend your time on a community where everyone is mad and shits on everything all the time? That's what I'm trying to get at. And I'm sorry, I'm getting fired up again. I'm getting riled up again. But that's my point. That's my point. So... yeah, see, look at this. Someone in the chat says, funny thing about your point is that about 5 years ago, Persona 4 Arena came out, and that became a gateway drug for anime players today, and people were talking about how much it changed people's lives. And that's the thing, right? That's the situation, is you end up where these gateway drugs are very important, but if the first thing that you run into is a bunch of negativity, you're not going to want to stick around. You're just not gonna want to stick around. And I have benefits because, like, I see, for example, my older brother who loves fighting games. He loves fighting games. He played Street Fighter 2 with me all the way through CVS 2. I think we used to play CVS 2 with each other. We've been playing, and his main hobby is movies. His main hobby is movies. He has watched thousands upon thousands upon thousands of movies. I think in the IMDb top 100, he's seen like all 100 of them. At least 99 of them or something like that. Like, my brother is the fucking movie guy. He used to be on Rotten Tomatoes. He used to have his own website, and he was one of the critics who was on Rotten Tomatoes. This is my brother, okay? And he loves Street Fighter. He is married. He has 2 kids now. He had to pull back the movie stuff a little bit. He doesn't go to screenings like he used to all the time. He still loves fighting games. He came up to me and, James, should I buy Street Fighter 5? I said no. I told him no. I was like, there's nothing in the game for you. There's no arcade mode. There's nothing in there for him. And he has no interest really in watching that many tournaments anymore because his priorities in life have changed. Things just change in people's life's priority. So you can't say that just because someone won't get into it right at the first sign of negativity. The point, like, people who... It's not even about people playing the game. It's about people watching the game, enjoying the hobby. We don't need everybody to play fighting games. As much as a lot of old school mentality says, like, you're not true FGC unless you've been to an event, unless you play the games. No, fuck that. As soon as you start watching, as soon as you become a fan of a fighting game, and you start watching a stream, you are FGC. I don't care who the fuck you are. That counts for me. Because people who watch basketball and have never been to a game and have never played basketball their whole entire life are not couch warriors. They are basketball fans, okay? That's just the way it goes. My brother likes Citizen Kane a lot. Small side topic, so. But that's my whole point, right? So that's just the thing, right? You are a fan. You can be a fan without playing, without attending events. That's fine. You're absolutely a fan. And so if you're watching it, you're already part of the FGC. And if all they run into is negativity, they're not going to want to stay into the FGC. That's just the way it works. So can we have a licensed game be the next big title? They tend to lose the rights easily and lack updating because they're sub-licensed from a massive company. So you're saying that we should have an unlicensed game be the next big title? Yeah. No, MechaGS, that's actually a really astute observation, which is a lot of the dangers for Dragon Ball, for Marvel, for Injustice, and a lot of those games. But see, that's, again, all you're doing is just coming back and proving my point again, that's why Street Fighter is so important. Because Street Fighter is that well known, and the only IP it exists in is the fighting games. So it is its own IP. They can do with it whatever they want. And that, again, now you just gave me even more reason to believe that Street Fighter V is probably still the most important game in our community right now. And it sucks. It sucks. Like I said, I don't want that. Like, can we get Tekken in there? Like, can Tekken and Guilty Gear get to that point where they are the biggest fighting games? God, if Guilty Gear was the biggest fighting game, do you know how happy I'd be? Holy shit, I'd be ecstatic about that. Because Guilty Gear is so fucking amazing, right? That's just the whole thing. Is this like, we are in a place right now where we do need to grow the fighting game community. We're still growing. And yes. I'm not telling everybody that you must accept the eSports, join the cult, kind of thing like that. If you prefer the grassroots stuff, if you don't care about the eSports, that is absolutely fine. That is absolutely fine. You are 100% entitled to that very logical, very sane, and very correct mindset. The whole thing is, do not begrudge those of us who are still trying to make it grow and who do have the intention and the goal to want to try to make it something bigger. There's nothing wrong with that either. That is also equally as logical and respectable of a decision. Neither one of them is correct. Neither one of them is right. We have two different goals. And if my goals don't align with your goals, you can tell me to suck your nuts all day. And I will totally be down with that. All I can do is show you where my viewpoint comes from. It's all I can do. And hope at least you understand that my motives are not insidious, that my motives are not self-serving, that I really just want the fighting game community to grow. That is the main thing. If you do not like where it's going, and in fact, I had one top player actually tell me to, he hates the way that eSports is growing. Top player in Street Fighter 4. And instead of ignoring him, I said, please, let's grab some lunch. I want to hear your viewpoint. I want to understand your viewpoint. That's where I'm coming from. I want to understand it so that, one, I get where they're coming from so that I'm not just blanketly saying you're an idiot. And two, maybe I can do something to fix it. Maybe I can do something to help it. Right? Maybe I can actually do something like that. I don't know if I actually can. I'm in a position where I feel like I don't have any power. But I certainly have a lot more power than most people do. I'm not going to even front about that. So maybe I can do something about it. Right? And that's what I want to do. I want to understand everybody's point of view. So the whole point is, if you do want it to be grassroots, do not begrudge those that are trying to make it work. Right? And it's not selfish. It's not always selfish. It's not about money, time to roll in the dough, like make it rain kind of shit like that. It's not always about that. It's not like, oh, dude, I'm this great commentator. I'm going to be famous. Fuck yeah. Like, that's not what it's about. It's not what it's about. It's about having the ability to have people play the best that they can play and never regret that decision in life. I just don't want anybody to think. I don't want someone like NuckleDo or Punk or Smug 20 years from now and look at their resume that has absolutely no bearing on real world requirements at all and go, what the fuck did I do? Why did I do this? You know, because there's one of a billion reasons why you would stop fighting games. Different priority in life. You meet someone you love, you get married, and family means everything to you. And you take over your wife's family business, so you move to Texas to take over their business, right? You get into a car accident. Your arm is injured now. You can't play fighting games anymore. You get carpal tunnel on your arm. All of a sudden, some terrible tragedy happens and you just don't have money to travel anymore. You have to take care of your parents who just suffered from a heart attack or something like that. There are a billion reasons why you will stop playing games, and I don't want anybody to regret that decision. And it's selfish. It's impossible. I know I can't help everybody. I know that there will always be people who will regret that decision. I cannot save everybody. I cannot help everybody. But damn it if I can't do the most that I can to help those people. Okay? Damn me if I can't, because it's my responsibility. At the same time, when I go to events and they tell me I would have never gotten into the fighting game community if it wasn't for you, James. Like, that is a beautiful thing, and at the same time, fuck me for that kind of fucking responsibility. Jesus Christ, what if I got someone into the fighting game community when they were like 16 years old, and then they played their heart out, and then some shit happens, and then their life sucks, and it's my fault. Fuck me, like, seriously. And I know people are going to tell me, James, it's not your fault. Shit happens, but god damn it, you see me cry at every fucking Evo? That's not an act, dude. I am an emotional ass human being. I can't help it. I can't help it. And so if I'm going to take responsibility for bringing people in the fighting game community, I am going to help people enjoy their time here and not regret it. So there you go. So, I mean, honestly. So, yeah, and of course, it's not my fault. It is absolutely not my fault. So, yeah, I'm an emotional person. With great commentary, there must also be... What? No, that was completely skewed. Maybe I have contradicted myself between last week and... Last week, that's just the thing, is that what I was talking about last week... like I said, was very much off the cuff, right? And I didn't even mean to talk about... I don't even mean to talk about RCAP and all that stuff. That all happened out of nowhere. And like I said, I can't walk it back. And so that's why at the very beginning of this episode, I said I was wrong. I was wrong. That's absolutely what I said. I am not going to say, yeah, I was emotional. I didn't mean it. People took it too seriously. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. I said what I said. I'm taking responsibility for it. And a lot of the things I said were very emotional, because I get very emotional when I think about things like RCAP, but don't ask me why, because I'm stupid that way. But after that, for an entire Thursday of talking with people online and talking with them on Twitter and explaining my position, I've been able to really put it into words much better than I did last week. Because I've thought about it, I've really understood exactly where that emotion came from. I really understand where a lot of that frustration from last week came from. So I'm able to word it a lot better. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of contradictions, but that's why I wanted to do this Uncensored episode so quickly, because I really wanted to restate my position from a more clear point of view, from a more, if I was the creator of RCAPA. The story by M. Night Shyamalan. But, yeah, that's about it. Fighting games is something so great. Fuck, man. No, honestly, dude, just recently a bunch of dudes were sitting there talking about Final Fantasy, and we were all getting weepy from, like, Final Fantasy 6 music. You want to make me cry? It's, like, almost guaranteed. Start playing the fucking Final Fantasy 6 ending music, and, you know, when it starts with the harp, and like they go through all the themes and everything. Dude, I'm getting fucking emotional just thinking about it. And then especially when it gets to the middle and they get to the Celeste and Locke part, and Locke's like, but I will never let you go. And then they fucking pull the trick on you that their themes could be layered on top of each other. So you hear the Celeste theme and then the Locke's theme plays over it and they match perfectly. Like, that shit blew my mind, and I was like, oh my god, their themes matched this whole fucking time. And then, dude, that is the guaranteed way to get me to start crying. Oh my god. Fuck, dude. Oh my god. Oh, shit. Fuck. Like I told you, that's like a guaranteed way to make me fucking cry, dude. To fucking cry every time, dude. Shit, that thing gets me every time. But yeah, in any case, that is the guaranteed way to get me to cry. So, alright. Okay, you know what? I think I'm done. I think I'm done with this topic now. Yeah, let's talk about the input buffer. But before I do that, I'm gonna take a quick break. I'm gonna take a quick break and try to earn my selfish esports pennies by running a bunch of ads. So, anyways, okay, I'll be back. Let's talk about the Street Fighter V input buffer when I return. Ugh. Oh, God. No, some people are asking what I'm talking about, the overlapping theme. Here, let me show you. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Here's the Celeste theme. I'm gonna blow some fucking people's minds right now, dude. I'm gonna blow some fucking people's mind. Locke's theme. Played over Celeste's theme. They matched. They matched, dude. Like, they played over each other. Opera theme is Celeste's theme. And now it just transitions fully into Locke's theme. That shit is amazing. I know about the backwards skyward sword thing. I know about that, actually. But that is so sick to me, that the Locke's theme and Celeste's theme actually overlapped like that. Like, he wrote them to match so that they could do that. Oh, God, it's so good. It's so good. God. The chills. The chills. The feels. Whew. Alright, anyways. Let's get back to this broadcast here. Let's get this broadcast here. Oh, if you haven't heard the Skyward Sword thing, if you actually take the Skyward Sword theme and play it backwards, it's actually Princess Zelda's theme. Spoilers. Do people not know about this? Hang on a second. Before I come back, let's see if we got to do this. Here we go. Skyward Sword theme backwards. I'm totally looking this up in YouTube now. So here we go. Here's Skyward Sword's theme, main theme, reversed, no sound effects. Let's see if this works here. The right part. Beautiful Paul is dead reference there. So there you go. That is the Skyward Sword theme played in reverse. So there you go. Yeah, it's the lullaby. That's what it is. That's what it is. So yeah, that is the crazy shit that's going on in that game. So all right, okay, let's get back to the show. All right, there we go. Let's move on to the next topic here. So, one of the reasons why I just wanted to talk about this mostly was because everybody has this opinion that I have nothing negative to say about Street Fighter V and all this stuff, and I defend it, and I say, please critique it. And they're always like, what's your critique, James? Well, here we go. I'm going to critique this game. And, I'll spend as much time on it as I need, but let's talk about this factor of Street Fighter V. In my opinion, in a weird way, I actually think one of the biggest culprits of everything that has caused Street Fighter V problems has been the input buffer. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who love the input buffer because they can do all the one-frame links. And God, there's a fucking lot of one-frame links in that. That game is one-frame link the game because they know the input buffer is in there. But the input buffer has resulted in a lot of side effects that I am not happy about at all. The thing about it is that what I don't like about the input buffer is that it removes a lot of the human element from the game. Street Fighter V, in my opinion, has become math the game. Like, it's more important now to understand frame data. It's more important now to understand taking your turns. Frame traps are always going to be perfect. Punishes are always going to be perfect, and everything's going to be exactly the same every time. And that makes it so that nobody's going to do anything different from each other. There's no difficulty curve, so what happens then is that everyone's going to go for the same thing all the time, right? So if I walk up to you with Karin and I do crouching, or Karen, if I do crouching medium punch into stand medium punch, that's going to be an accurate frame trap 100% of the time. 100% of the time. Right? So that means I have to know about this whole plus or minus. Is it my turn? Is it your turn? Whatever, stuff like that. Like, even in Street Fighter 4, Balrog, for example, his dash punch, -3 on block. Against Cammy. Cammy's stand jab, 3 frames, can punish the dash punch. Balrogs could largely still get away with doing a dash punch against Cammy because Cammy cannot confirm stand light punch into a combo off of that punish at those certain ranges. She just has to commit to jab into drill. So most Cammys wouldn't. And so they wouldn't be able to punish it 100% of the time. So that allowed Balrogs to get away with things a little bit more often, right? You would run into players who would be good at it, but then that's their skill. Then as a commentator to be like, holy shit, he's punishing that every time. What is this godlike timing that he has? And there's a chance to be amazed, right? If Ryu has a frame trap of crouch, evil Ryu had a frame trap of like standing medium punch, crouching medium punch, he could fuck up the timing and you could jab in between it. To be consistent at that was a skill that is on him. It's a required skill on his part. Now in Street Fighter V, everything is math. Everyone's going to do the same combos. Everyone's going to do the same frame traps We know what's optimal, and optimal is always what you should do. And to me, taking away the human element out of a fighting game, I think is a problem. I think that is a problem. I really, really honestly think taking away the human element out of fighting games is a problem, which is why I've always been a fan of execution. I know there's a lot of people out there that say, you know, oh, it should only be about the mind or whatever like that. It's a video game. Like, we can get into this whole topic some other time. But I never believe that. I never believe it's a video game. It requires dexterity. It requires finger skills. And you know, that adds to the execution barrier, and it makes it harder. But again, that's a mentality change that people need to have, right? So people are like, oh, it sucks because why can't I do the same combo that Justin Wong is doing? And that really sucks. Why can't I dribble, drive down the floor and run over people and dunk like LeBron James can? Why can't I dribble behind the back like Kobe Bryant can? You know, and dodge through like 7 people and get a layup? You know, it's because it takes practice, and practice is rewarding, and it's cool. I don't know, maybe, you know, maybe that's just something that's very, very cool, right? Like, honestly, like, that's a mentality change. People shouldn't expect it. There are plenty of easier combos that you can do in the meantime. When I teach everybody Guilty Gear, like, I was trying to teach people Guilty Gear. Someone was like, hey, James, how do I play Eno? And I was like, okay, here, stand light kick, 5K, 2S, chemical love. I'm like, that is the first combo you need to learn right there, because then you knock them down, you get a musical note, play the game. You are not doing your damage. Who cares? Who cares right now? You're learning the game. If you could beat people by doing suboptimal combos, guess how fucking good of a player you are. Guess how fucking amazing you are at fighting games, okay? So then, once you actually figure out the game and get used to everything, and you're not putting this needless barrier on top of yourself, and now you actually have gotten a feel for the game, now you can learn harder combos. But when I teach people Guilty Gear, I give everybody a very, very, very basic combo to start with, and I say, learn this, don't learn anything else, that makes you better. Stand 5K, 2S, horizontal chemical love, vertical chemical love, you know. So that's the thing. Yeah, if you can beat people with, if you can actually beat people with suboptimal combos, you're a better player than them. Or if you lose and they have a tiny bit of life and you're like, you know what, I would have won had I known that combo. You won even though you lost, right? Then that gives you the impetus. That gives you the official drive to try to learn that combo instead of trying to learn it at the beginning and going, fuck this is stupid. Who needs all this stupid, like, freaking, like, you know, like, who wants all that crap, right? Like, you don't need that frustration early on. So my whole point is that I really honestly believe that having the human element in fighting games is really, really important. And so I really hate the input buffer. I would like it so that the input buffer only exists if the enemy is in hit stun. That is what I want to do. That is what I want to do. I want to make it so that the input buffer only registers if it detects the opponent is in hit stun. So it'll work for all the combos that we know, but now all the frame traps. So why is Mika towards heavy punch so fucking scary when you block that shit? Because she's +3 and she has perfect input buffer timing now. And so now after you block this shit, you're still in a mix-up. Now imagine if there was no input buffer and you block this shit. Now you're like, I'm going to fucking jab you, or I'm going to try a reversal uppercut because special moves being reversible makes them special. Right? So, like, just imagine how different the game would be all of a sudden. Then people would be able to have a lot more stake in how they play. There's a lot more skill to be admired. I really honestly think that there was, and honestly, the wake-up jab. If the wake-up jab wasn't so perfectly bufferable on wake-up as well. Even it takes something like that and makes it harder to do. Like, if a reversal jab was a 1 or 2 frame window, it would be harder to do. So that's why I don't like input buffer. I actually think input buffer is a problem because it turns the game into Robot the fighting game. It turns it into Math the fighting game. And it removes a lot of the individuality because you've removed the human element. And there is nothing more individual than the human element. You know, what was that noise? Dude, the Capcoms are after me. Shit. But like honestly, like and then not only that, but that also makes the frame kills perfect. So now when I hit you, I can go jab strong, forward strong, jab dash into meaty and have a perfect meaty every time because it's Math the game, it's Robot the game. You know what I mean? Like it's God, that shit drives me nuts, and it loses the individuality and it fights against. The one is the ghost of my controller, and it fights against the one thing that, in my opinion, is a problem with Street Fighter V. And I have distilled everything that I know about Street Fighter V and all of the people's complaints and everything that people don't like about them. I have distilled all of their complaints into one cohesive sentence. And I don't want anybody to fucking hive mind this shit because I don't want everyone going around repeating that because that's just even worse. Even if it's from me, don't fucking hive mind this shit. Form your own opinion. But the reason why I think Street Fighter V is so unappealing to a lot of players, my one sentence TLDR summary, astute summary of Street Fighter V's problem is Street Fighter V does not let you feel badass. That's it. All it comes down to. The game does not let you feel badass. You don't feel special for any of the combos that you're landing. You don't feel special because you can't do anything cool with your characters that nobody else can. Most of the strategies are pretty simple about these meaty things. A lot of people are doing a lot of the exact same thing. And that's a problem. And the characters that do give you the most ability to feel badass, like Urian, is the most fun character in the game. He's the most fun character in the game. That is that's just the way it comes down to. That's why guys like Daigo and GamerB have complained about it. So that's why I think it'll be interesting if they do add more V skills, if they add more V triggers, if they remove the input buffer and gave the human element back into the game. I've argued with people about this. Some people like the fact that you've removed that kind of human element from the game. I think it's terrible. I mean, I'm just not even going to mince words about it. I think it's terrible. Now, let's go back a step. And people are going to ask, well, hey, James, in Blaze Blue, there's input buffer. In Tekken, there's a giant input buffer. What's wrong with those games? Well, Tekken 7 is a game that has been developed for 15 years with input buffer. They know all about input buffer. They've built the game around input buffer. And even still, with the input buffer, even with slower moves, sometimes, like, dude, how many times do you watch Tekken and you see someone block a low and they're like, oh, he didn't punish that. He could have punished that way worse than he did. Or they block something that's like -10, and or they box something that's launch punishable, and they only get punished with a 1-2. How often do you see that? And that's because Tekken is designed with 7 gazillion moves. The game is designed in a way to purposely keep you from being familiar with everything that you see. Street Fighter V not only put in the input buffer, but they took away moves. There's even less moves now. Everything is super recognizable, so you can react to everything because there's only 2 things that the person is probably going to do at that particular moment. With Tekken, one of the beauties of Tekken is that you have the ability to just say, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to do this move that he hasn't seen in a while. I'm going to do this other move. And it's so hard for your brain to process every one of those moves. So even though there's input buffer, you can't punish everything exactly. Not only that, but a lot of their juggle combos, their limiter is based on the fact that the more often they're juggled, the further pushed back they are. So then it becomes dashing in the middle of combos. So if you can actually dash the perfect lengths into the buttons and time everything and buffer everything properly, that makes it feel badass. So Tekken has been built around the concept of input buffer so that it doesn't stale the game. You know, there's still a really huge amount of skill to the juggle combos, and a lot of people will do the easier juggle combos because they can't do the micro dashes properly and stuff like that. Some people will get punished all the time because they do use the same moves over and over and over again. And once you train that opponent, yeah, with the input buffer, they're going to punish you 100% of the time. But Tekken is built around knowing that, so they can get around that problem. Street Fighter is not built around the input buffer yet. It can be. Street Fighter V can 100% be built around that input buffer with a few tweaks here and there. And because of the input buffer and them taking away a lot of the defensive stuff, it's kind of ironic because I feel like uppercut, FADC, and invincible backdashers would have a beautiful place in Street Fighter V. I actually think that they would be great. The stages are shorter. You can't even run away, so if they backdash, that's a win for you. Uppercut FADC would make them lose meter, stuff like, that's a weird thing. It's like a lot of those defensive options would actually work in Street Fighter V. So if you put those defensive options into the game, and they always cost resource, whether it's meter or whether it's stage real estate, if you put those kind of things in there to counterbalance the intense, perfect, 100% accurate offense from your opponent, it actually works out in a weird way. So I really do hoping that they do put in some more defensive mechanics in Street Fighter V. I really do. I really want them to put more defensive mechanics. I wouldn't be opposed to invincible backdashes, especially if there was a way to, you hold two buttons, you hold your V-skill buttons and backdash, and that costs meter for an invincible backdash. I've even talked about a push block system that isn't an actual push block, that it's basically an alpha counter that hits on the first frame, so that it catches the opponent, can't hit people out of the air, but let's say Karen does standing medium kick, you do this thing that costs super meter instead of V gauge, and all it does is it grabs their leg in one frame, like pow, and you grab them and pushes them to half screen away. So that way you can't push block Karin's Rekka's and make her whiff moves and punish it or whatever like that. It's just like an automatic guaranteed push block, right? Something like that. It just doesn't work on airborne opponents, so you can't do it to jump attacks. So it would cost meter, push them half a screen away, and at least force neutral again. It doesn't give you any benefit, but you're spending a lot of meter to do that, right? It's kind of like a Guilty Gear dead angle, right, in a lot of ways. I hate the fact that the V reversals are slower now. I don't get that at all. I just don't get that at all. Just a lot of things. Yeah, some people I wouldn't want a safety P. Right? Yeah, and fuck that idea as geef. Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of things to balance out. But see, this is what I mean. I can come up with these ideas, and everyone's like, that idea is shit, James. And so a lot of the ideas that a lot of people are dishing out to Capcom, they might implement and they play it, and they're like, what is this garbage, right? That's the thing. It's balancing a fighting game is so delicate. It's really fucking hard to balance this kind of thing. So... But would I be opposed to faster walk speed, more range in normals, more active frames, and faster startup? Seems like Street Fighter V down in all those areas compared to past games. It's actually not true, necessarily. The walk speed is about the same. It's not really that much worse than it was before. And the normals actually do have a lot of similar ranges. The hardest part about this game, honestly, is that there's just not enough buttons. You have to use up Laura's standing medium kick for this close-up button that accidentally ends up being really good far away because there's no close-up and no far away moves. That's another one of my big sticklers. I really want proximity normals back. I really, really want proximity normals. You have to use up so many of them because you only have as much room to apply to the different situations, right? And so now you have to submit standing medium kick to be your knee, which it is for half the characters, and then you have to submit crouching medium kick to be your long range poke, etc., etc. When you actually have 6 buttons for far and 6 buttons for close, yeah, a lot of the buttons feel useless, but that's part of the beauty of fighting games, right? Is that sometimes someone will find something weird, a use for that move. Again, individuality. All of a sudden, you're going to see someone there was that one fight that Vi had against Justin with Ryu, where he just kept hitting standing fierce against Justin's Rufus, and it was really locking him down. It was the most amazing thing I had seen. I was like, that is so sick. And he was the only person I'd ever seen do that. But in Street Fighter V, we pretty much know what most of our normals are going to do because there's not that many of them. Yeah, there's 12 normals, standing, crouching. I just feel like that it could be better. I just feel like it could be more with more normal moves. So I actually really, really like them to be longer. So that's just how I feel about that. So, old proximity normals as command normals. I mean, that's possible. Alpha 3 did that and Vism. I just think that's too confusing. I think that's too confusing. I think that's too much. I think that's too much. And it affects a lot of characters. Like Guile, for example. If you're Guile or Chun-Li, now if you're charging a fireball, you'll never be able to do a long-range normal. I mean, maybe that's the punishment for having that control, but you can't play footsies with those characters very well in those kind of situations. So, do I think neutral and angled jump normals should be different again? Yeah, I do. I think most neutral jump attacks are too good. Neutral jumping in footsies is way too powerful, in my opinion, in this game, because the range on those moves are really, really good. Tekken has a trillion moves with directionals. Why would having Street Fighter V with a lot of command normals be weird? Because that to me is less essence of Street Fighter. And like I said, because of the Guile and the Chun-Li and the charge character problems. Like Urien, if he's charging shoulder tackle, he wouldn't even have access to his far range moves. And I think that would be a problem. So, but see, here's the thing is, like, there's so many different opinions about this, and this is another thing too, is that not everybody's going to be happy about it. So yeah, Street Fighter V has problems, but you can totally see from this chat right now, every idea that everyone's bringing up that they think is a genius idea, there's a problem with it. And so that's basically where Street Fighter, in fact, I feel like Street Fighter V's gameplay might be one of the most over-constructed gameplays out of Street Fighter games. I actually feel like it might have been one of its bigger weaknesses, as opposed to just saying, look, let's just put this together and let's see how this shit falls together. Like, I almost feel like it's too calculated in a way. And I think that's where a lot of it, the weaknesses from the game, comes from. And it's because I think they're thinking too hard about a lot of what people are talking about. I've talked with Seth a lot about Street Fighter 4. And the sheer amount of things that turned out to be happy accidents, is like on the levels of like Bob Ross paintings, right? I mean, like, seriously, they just turn into these happy little trees, and it's like great things. So, do I think Street Fighter V would benefit from a complete overhaul, or is it salvageable? That was my topic 2 UNCHENSOREDs ago. I said that I do think that Street Fighter V would benefit from an overhaul, mostly to give the common casual perception that something is different. It won't mean so much for the experts and the pros, because they've already been playing the game for long. What they really care about is the gameplay. In fact, there's even some people in the chat who are like, you know what, I don't even care about, arcade mode. Why do people want arcade mode? But, so that's the thing. 2 different mindsets, right? Fighting for on one game. Street Fighter V is really the biggest sad child in the messiest divorce that I've seen. Like, there are so many cooks in the kitchen that are pulling at all of its legs. I mean, like, seriously, like, Street Fighter V, sometimes I feel like Ultra Magnus when the sweeps came down and oh, that was cut out. That was not actually in the movie. They actually took that away because it was deemed too violent for kids. Never mind. Never mind. Ultra Magnus, of course, in the original scene was that the sweeps were supposed to come down and attach a cable to each of his limbs, and they drew and quartered him. But in the released version of Transformers the movie, they just shot him with a bunch of lasers and he exploded. But he was actually supposed to be drawn and quartered. That was the original storyboard of it. So yeah, it's pretty fucking crazy, dude. But yeah, like, honestly, Street Fighter V is honestly, I feel like, the product of too many cooks in the kitchen. And it's a problem. And yeah, it needs some of that Dragon Ball FighterZ love. It does. It does need some of that love in there. But at the same time, when you make a game out of love, when an artist makes a painting out of love, when a writer writes a song out of love, when a person writes a story out of love, most of the time that means they don't give a fuck what you think. So in a weird, ironic way, the best way for Street Fighter, in my opinion, to be developed is if one person can sit down and be like, you know what, fuck everybody, I'm going to make this game the way that I want to make it. And everybody is mad that Capcom's not listening to anybody, but at the same time they want the game made with love. Again, one of the most twisted and pulled and overly criticized games there are. And again, I say overly criticized not in that I'm telling you to stop criticizing it. It's just that people are so negative about it that they refuse to see any of the good stuff about it anymore. As much as I complain, as much as I hate the input buffer, as much as I hate fucking safe-ass crush counters in the middle of footsies, what the fuck are you thinking? As much as I hate that, I like a lot of what Street Fighter V has brought to the table. I think the balance is really good, and I know balance doesn't equal fun, but I like a lot of the character designs. I think, like, Dalsum is sick. I love the way Zangief is in this game now. I think Abigail is awesome, okay? I'm sorry. I think Abigail is really cool. I like what they tried with Ed with different commands. I think Colleen was an interesting twist on a lot of things, you know? I do like a lot of what Street Fighter V did. I actually think the graphics are good. I know some people don't like the graphics, but like every time I go back and watch Street Fighter 4, I'm like, Jesus Christ, like Ryu doing jump roundhouse and he's looking like this. Like, I'm serious, he's not even looking at the person he's kicking. Like, look at him. He's like looking at the screen, dude. I mean, like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like, there's a lot of ugliness in Street Fighter 4. So, I mean, honestly, like, there's a lot of good things about Street Fighter V. And yes, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of problems. And all of it, most of it is Capcom's fault. Most of it is absolutely Capcom's fault. And Capcom needs to do stuff. They need to make better communication, etc., etc., etc. But I see a lot of potential in the game, so I have hope for it. I have gone through enough shitty games. Mortal Kombat 1, God, what a pile of shit. And then Mortal Kombat 2 fixed a lot of that stuff. You know, Super Street Fighter 2. Holy shit. Do you know how pissed off everybody was with Super Street Fighter 2 after Hyper Fighting? Do you know how mad? Man, Street Fighter would have been dead at Super if social media existed back then. Super Street Fighter 2 would have ended it. We would have never had a Super Turbo. That would have been it. That would have been the end of everything. God, how mad were people when Super came out? If people don't even know, it's like Street Fighter 2, slow game. Champion Edition, slow game. Turbo, fast. Oh my God, this game is fucking amazing. Super, slow game. What the hell did you do? Why the hell would you have turned the speed back down? What the fuck happened? Why? How did you turn my awesome game so shitty? Like, Super was so hated. People fucking, like, Street Fighter died the first time during that period of time. People stopped playing it and everyone went to Mortal Kombat and Samurai Showdown and everything. And then Super Turbo came out and everything was great. Everything was great. So, there you go. Yeah, dude. People loved Super Turbo because Super Turbo fixed everything that Super did wrong because they put the speed all the way back up. So, yeah. Trust me, shitty games lead to amazing games. It's the way it works. Shitty games just lead to amazing games. That's how I feel about fighting games. And so maybe that makes me a little over-optimistic. Maybe you guys are right. Maybe Capcom ain't listening to shit and Season 3 comes out and is a pile of who knows what the fuck. You know, like, maybe that happens. If that's the case, then I'll be like, nope, you guys are right. Fuck Street Fighter. But I'm hopeful, okay? I'm hopeful. I'm trying to be optimistic about it. So, there you go. Mass Effect. Yeah, some games actually go from being great to shitty. Oh, man. V-cancel rumor? What the hell is a V-cancel? I haven't heard anything about that. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, Capcom needs to do much better with their public relations and with their game in general. PR is not their only problems, but PR is definitely one of the things that generates their most ill will towards them. You know, their PR and lack of PR. Whenever their PR comes out and it's negative, like, trust me, I'm just as mad at Capcom about their negativity as anyone else. And trust me, I've talked about this, okay? This is not something that I'm not This is not a two-way street. This is not a one-way street thing. I'm not only yelling at you guys, okay? I'm yelling in all directions right now because I want this to work. I want this to work out. I want fighting games to stay something so great. And at the rate it's going right now, it's not. But hopefully it will stay that way. And fighting games will be much better in the future. So, what additions do I want to the V system would you like to see to add depth to the game? More system mechanics, more resources. More resources. I don't like that the V system is only V trigger and V reversal. I would like to add something else to it just to give people more ability to have choices, to have decisions to make. And maybe make V triggers a little less potent so that there is more reason to use the other things. And then maybe make V meter gain a little bit faster. So that way there is ability to use a lot of cool things and V trigger at the same time. But right now I think V triggers are too powerful. I hate that V triggers are like the one-stop shop for comebacks. Like they're worse than Ultras ever were in Street Fighter 4. And when Street Fighter 4 first came out, God, let me tell you about the 2 years of crying about Ultras. Let me tell you about 2 years of crying about Ultras. Then Super came out and they added new Ultras and people were like, really? You just made the comeback mechanic even better? Like, holy shit, people hated Ultra combos. Fuck, people yelled at them. God, they were mad at Ultra combos for the longest of time. So, yeah. Yeah. I mean, if some people have really shitty V skills and V triggers, obviously balance. Like, I would not be opposed to making it so that Vega's V trigger did not lead into a super combo juggle, but only cost 1 bar. And you gave him 3 bars. That would be kind of interesting, wouldn't it? A 3-bar V trigger that doesn't drain the whole V trigger. So that way he can go rose, rose, rose. Maybe 3 roses, it would be a combo. I think that would be really sick. And then people would be throwing roses a lot more. You'd see air roses and ground roses a lot more. Because right now, whenever you use the V trigger as one of those and it gets blocked, you're like, well, fuck, I just wasted my whole meter. Shit. But, like, can you imagine if your V trigger was only 1 bar and you got 3 of them? You could just, like, throw 3 roses in a row. That would actually be super sick. Oh, man. Ultra combos were great for spectators. You are absolutely right, Beats. You are absolutely right. Camera zoom with the other character's face going, whoa, was amazing. Yeah, so Ultra combos were great. I realized that I hated Ultra combos. And then when I saw the first people get all hype at Gutex's bar fights, when Ken did uppercut FADC into Ultra, Edmod did that to Combo Fiend, and I knew that shit wasn't going to do any damage, but the audience went, oh, because it was this highlighted thing, and Ken is like zooming in camera, and I was like, I get it. I get it. I get it now. And so, you know, that, man, there's so many aspects to fighting games that a lot of people don't think about, and that's another one, spectator friendliness. That's why I yell at Injustice all the time, right? I kept telling people about Injustice. I was just like, make the moves more dynamic. Like, all their moves look like they're doing the same thing. Okay, sure, Catwoman is doing claws, and Black Canary looks more like Jiu-Jitsu, but, like, between all of Catwoman's moves, they all look the fucking same. Between everything Robin does, it all looks the same. Like, you just need to make things a little more dynamic so that so people can see the difference between moves. Make it so that the KOs are more impactful. I was talking to guys in Chile about this, and they were just like, whoa, I never thought about these things. Like, one of the reasons why Tekken had a problem before was their KOs were not cathartic. Do you remember Tekken KOs used to be fight, 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 boom, oh, boom, oh, boom, oh, boom. Like, they showed the same kill in 3 different angles, and it sucked. That thing was shit. Like, it was like, bomb, 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 KO, the guy wins. And that wasn't very exciting at all, right? One of the reasons why Tekken 7 slow motion is so beautiful because it not only gives us that cathartic KO release, but it emphasized it. It made it even so much better. Now it's just like, oh shit, holy fucking power! Like, people go nuts about that shit. And even when you don't get that slow-mo, you get the proper pow, KO, and then they're like, ah. Dude, you don't understand how important that little small thing is to fighting games. That little tiny thing is so crucial to viewers because it gives them a catharsis. It helps with the narrative. You're sitting there and you're watching, you're like, oh my God, and then someone dies, and that KO section, you're like, oh, catharsis, calm down, reset, let's go. Which is why when Injustice, it's like boom, 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 start match, or character select. It like is the fucking worst thing ever. Jesus Christ. That's why Smash is also so good too. Because if you enjoy watching Smash, you get that same kind of thing when someone is about to die and then they finally get knocked off the screen. It's so pronounced. It's like boom. And then the guy comes down invincible for a little bit. There's a little bit of catharsis. There's a release. Like, people don't understand why that's so important, but it's so important to fighting games to work on that from a presentation standpoint. It has nothing to do with gameplay. And you can see how much just even a small thing like that can affect watchability of a game and stuff like that. And so there's just so many factors to these games that a lot of people don't realize. And, you know, the only time I'll actually sound like a conceited asshole is like when I've sounded like a conceited asshole a lot. But the only time that I'll acknowledge it and do it on purpose is that I've been playing fighting games for a fucking long time. So I definitely realize a lot of things that I just don't think a lot of other people realize. So, in any case, yeah, critical art effect kill in Street Fighter V is not great. Not great. Any case, that's all I have for now, because I'm definitely not talking about input buffer anymore. But to TLDR the input buffer is a problem because, in my opinion, it takes away all of the human element from Street Fighter V. I feel like there's so many, I mean, obviously the decision making is still there, but a lot of the decisions are made for you because they're based off of the input buffer, right? Like, your frame trap is perfect, so now the decision to take a step forward because your opponent knows the frame trap is perfect is part of that input buffer result. Everything, I just feel like the input buffer has too much in there. I like the fact that it makes combos a little bit easier to do. I would make combos harder to do through some other means. But if you made it so that you only got input buffer while the enemy was in hit stun, that's what I would prefer. Because then your frame traps would still have to be time perfect. Your counters would still have to be time perfect. You couldn't frame kill everything for perfect meaties anymore, etc., etc. Those things to me, I think, are important. So if I had a choice, I would get rid of input buffer except for during hit stun of the opponent. However, not going to happen. Do not anybody get your hopes up. I'm sure it's going to live on through all of Street Fighter V. And if it does, then I hope, like Tekken, because we see from Tekken, you can build a game properly with it in mind. Build the game around the concept of input buffer and to fix things so that, you know, maybe give everyone consistent, like, here's another one for Tekken, right? Everybody has universal wake-up options in terms of kick you, roll away, roll this way, roll this way. So it killed the input buffer meaty problem, right? So now if I hit you out of your wake-up attack every single time because I have input buffer, then you roll away. So now I need to dash up and chase you when you roll away and keep pressure going that way instead, etc., etc. As long as you build the game around the idea of input buffer, it can make it worse. But right now, what they did was they injected input buffer into a game that does not work with input buffer. And so I think that has made the game overall a little more weak. So, yeah, I saw that. I've heard about that, Beats. Daigo had an idea about cleaner execution rewarding the player with slightly higher damage with a visual cue of a different hit color spark or something like that. Yeah, that could definitely be really cool, and it would basically be a DDR thing. It would be excellent, great, or good, you know, kind of thing, or maybe even poor. Like, maybe you'll get poor damage and stuff like that. I don't know how well over that would go with some people. I think it would be an interesting idea, but I think there's more to it than that, because it wouldn't kill the frame kills. It wouldn't get rid of the proper punish. Oh yeah, I guess the proper punishes it would, but it wouldn't get rid of frame kills and stuff like that. So like it would be really interesting. I wonder how they would code that. I'm trying to think from a coding standpoint. Like, every time it repeated the frame, it would have to change it to a different move. It would have to change it to a different damage. It would add a scaling to it. So that way, even if you did it during a punish or even a combo, it would still frame scale. That would be the easiest way to code it. Sorry, I'm totally going into programmer mode right now. In any case, a lot of different ideas. A lot of different ideas on how to make it work. And none of them are right. None of them are wrong. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully Street Fighter V does a lot of things for Season 3. But again, the main thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to apologize and retract my statement that Street Fighter V dies, the FGC dies. I didn't mean it that way. I meant it more that it would stagnate again and it would go back to being more grassroots, which, one, is perfectly acceptable for many people. All I can do is present why I'm not happy about that. And yes, that means that I do have a personal stake in it. And two, I have to be more careful with my words. So I'm not saying that I didn't mean it that way. I said it that way. It came out that way. It is 100% interpretable that way. That is 100% my fault. So I take that back. I apologize. Fighting game community will still be alive just fine without Street Fighter V. There's no reason that this fighting game community would die at all. It's just that the eSports momentum that we have would not be able to sustain itself for a little bit until another game came and took over. That's all. So I do apologize. I didn't actually mean it, that if Street Fighter V died, then the fighting game community would die. But I said it, and I apologize, so I retract that, and I perfectly acknowledge my own mistake. There you go. So that's it for today. That's basically what I wanted to establish. So, oh yeah, eSports should 100% acknowledge the other games in the FGC. 100%. I really hope they do. That's the other thing too that a lot of people didn't catch when the statements were clipped. I said that statement not in that like, ha, suck it, that Street Fighter V is the most important games. Deal with it, suckers. Like more just that. It sucks that it's this way. It shouldn't be this way. It is this way right now. And we should do everything we can to change it. But ironically, the best way to change it is by going with it for a little bit. Because if the bigger fighting games get, the better chance that other games like Tekken and Guilty Gear can get their limelight. Honestly. You know, because Capcom does a Pro Tour, then it was like Tekken does a Pro Tour, and then KI does a World Tour, and then Injustice does a World Tour, and then, you know, ESPN, let's say they get Street Fighter, then another channel will be like, we want our fighting game, let's put on Guilty Gear. You know, it's just, rising tide lifts all boats. Rising tide lifts all boats. And then after it gets high enough that we can sail out of the bay, fucking fire your cannons and blow some of those other boats out of the water. But none of us are getting out of the bay until that rising tide gets high enough for all of us to get out of that. And if only one boat is pouring water back into the ocean, then we're going to have to let them rise that tide. And then once we're all out of that bay, blow that ship out of the water, dude. Just do it. Okay? So there you go. All right. Thanks, guys, for tuning in for another episode of UNCHENSORED. Hope that cleared up a lot of things. If you want to still be mad at me, feel absolutely free, absolutely within your right. But if you're willing to talk about it, come to Twitter, message me. I am totally down to talk with you guys. I responded to just about everybody from my apology post, because if you only pay attention to the people who agree with you, then you will never grow. And so I actually didn't respond to most people who agreed with me, and I only responded to people who disagreed with me because I wanted that conversation. I wanted to understand where they're coming from. And it was great. And what it did was it allowed me to really understand where my own stance was coming from and to word it properly, more logically, and less hate-filled myself. Less negativity even for me. So I took this time to be more constructive over last week's episode. So there you go. So thanks again, and I hope that helped a lot. And despite the fact that I'm trying to be all friendly and nice and everything like that, you can all suck my nuts, assholes, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.